Chapter 207. The City of Dawn seemed to have fallen into a bottomless abyss. Waves and waves of dark creatures came at them. It seemed like they would never be able to kill them all, except for William, who continued to charge forward. Burn Cinder and his companions formed a battle formation and became the first line of defense for the City of Dawn. They were both high-tier bosses, both epic and legendary bosses. No matter how you looked at it, they were the strongest in the southeast corner. The four of them worked together to block the dark creatures from all directions. They hoped to reduce the pressure on the professionals in the city. Battle energy bloomed in the darkness. It was like fireworks. They were not injured, but if they continued fighting, their battle energy would be depleted. When that happened, no matter how powerful they would be devoured by the dark creatures. But it was just the beginning. William wielded his legendary Thunder Saber and unleashed all his moves, advancing forward with indomitable will. Every time he swung his saber, a powerful saber energy would burst forth. Thunder accompanied him. Lightning was his companion. An advanced Grandmaster Devil flew through the air and slashed down with his huge sword. William dodged the dark sword energy. His left hand grabbed the huge sword that he was about to lift up and left a deep handprint on it. The demon only felt a huge pulling force coming from the heavy sword. He swung his huge fist, which emitted black light. He wanted to smash the head of the elf in front of him. But William did not care and headbutted the elf. Bang! The black light shattered. The devil felt the bones in his hand shatter. William, who was wearing the legendary helmet, tilted his head back. Then he raised his saber and slashed. Lightning flashed. The devil abandoned his sword and retreated. His chest was still bleeding. But before he had the time to counterattack, a hand had already pierced through his chest, grabbing onto his spine. Crack! The bloody spine was pulled out by the roots. The devil's head almost sank into his internal cavity. In the next second, William did not stop. He continued to charge forward. He wanted to see how long the battle line of the dark creatures was and how many devils were involved. But he felt that after advancing tens of thousands of meters, there was still an endless dark army around him. Waves of stronger dark creatures appeared. They were not beginner dark creatures, but tens of thousands of intermediate dark creatures. At this moment, he knew the situation had changed. The human nations were not facing as much pressure as before. The City of Dawn was the main enemy of the dark creatures. William stood still in the dark torrent. He was like a reef in the river that was constantly being battered by the waves. He was looking towards the demon den in the north. He sensed it. Someone should be looking in his direction. Forget it. William shook his head. There was no need to kill his way into the devil's den. He knew that in his previous life, the strongest warrior in the devil's den was only an advanced. However, it did not mean that he truly understood everything. So, just as he was about to fly into the sky to escape, demons that were 2 to 3 meters tall suddenly appeared in the sky and surrounded him. Elf, make your city submit to the dark army. Sacrifice half of your life, and you will obtain eternal life, said a high-level epic demon. Oh, you're so confident that you can defeat me? William held his thunder sword and smiled. How would we know if we don't try? The epic devil waved his hand, and the other 4 high devils instantly drew their swords and started fighting. It had been less than half an hour since version 2.0 started. The bloody battle had already lasted for half an hour. The hundreds of thousands of players in the City of Dawn gradually calmed down. In this urgent situation, Chu Yochio immediately used a magic scroll and shouted, "Level 39 professionals, quickly change your occupation and change your intermediate equipment." It was a profession change mission. D*MN. My mission is to kill an intermediate professional alone. What's there to be afraid of? The dark creatures are still at the beginner level. But soon, you'll be able to kill an intermediate professional. Hey. My profession change mission is to kill 5 beginner professionals. I just completed it. Tisk TSK. My profession change mission doesn't even have one. I just leveled up. A life profession player called European had already changed into an intermediate silver equipment set. He spoke lazily. Greetings, Lucky Emperor. Greetings, Lucky Emperor. When Forever Alone saw this situation, he could not help but curse F***CKM. Many team members heard the captain's curses and asked, "What's wrong, Captain? Is the profession change mission very difficult? Get lost. Hurry up and change your occupation. Didn't you hear the Deputy City Lord's words? The more dark creatures you kill, the more points you will get. Although I don't know what treasures can be exchanged for with the defense points, I'm sure it will be worth it." Forever Alone chased the others away. Would he say that his profession change mission was to kill 5 intermediate professionals? D***man. Was the professional player treated so poorly? He was the captain of the 4th best battle team in the world. The defensive line of the City of Dawn was very long. There were too many dark creatures. Even though these dark creatures had smelled the scent of life, they still charged forward. Many dark creatures could not get a good position, so they could only climb up the cliffs on both sides. The defensive measures that the City of Dawn had prepared for half a year had played a crucial role at this moment. The cliffs were about 60 meters long, and a 5-meter wide cliff was enchanted. Many dark creatures could not climb up even if they stabbed their claws into the cliff. They could only move horizontally. After all, even the unintelligent dark creatures wanted to ask, "What if I don't move horizontally? Should I climb down?" It's impossible. There were a few brothers who were climbing up. It was already good enough that they could move left and right, unless they made a leap of faith and jumped down. There were impatient dark creatures, but they were usually smashed into a pile of mud. Therefore, many skeleton soldiers who had the wisps in their eyes, decided to slowly move towards the center. Therefore, many beginner dark creatures were stuck on the cliffs. They could not move up or down, and it was difficult for them to move left or right. Only the dark creatures that were rushing towards the City of Dawn could continue climbing. However, many dark creatures were attacked by the vines of the Devil's Vines at a height of 40 meters below the City of Dawn. Not all dark creatures were made of bones. For example, devil hounds and carrion monsters had disgusting flesh. However, their flesh was not normal. The Devil's Vines did not care about the flesh in their bodies. As long as it was energy, they would eat it. The dark creatures were not done after they passed the 40 to 50 meter checkpoint. Small holes appeared on the 50 to 60 meter wall. One spear after another was stabbed out, pulled back, stabbed out, pulled back, in and out. The frequent stabbing and thrusting made the dark creatures feel so good that they couldn't even take care of themselves. Their bodies were full of holes. Half an hour passed. Most of the dark creatures that climbed up were injured, and most of them fell down. Only a few lucky ones managed to reach the top of the cliff. Next, they would face 2 rows of sword-wielding shield bearers. As for the dark creatures that appeared out of nowhere, they just needed to charge forward with their shields. Bang, roar, 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 these beginner vanguards would fall down. Even if they did not die, they would at least be crippled. Many players could not help but feel happy when they saw this. They even felt that this battle was going to be easy. But some people knew humans would get tired, even if they were professionals who possessed battle energy. The endless dark creatures on the grass plain did not seem to be tired. They were like wild beasts that were in a frenzy. This battle, they would not rest until they died. Chapter 208. The Darkness Invasion had reached its climax right from the start. Due to the fearless charge of the dark creatures, the warriors of the City of Dawn had engaged in close combat within half an hour. Angry Fatty and the other live broadcasters started their live broadcasts. They ran to the rooftop of the buildings to show the audience the most beautiful and shocking scene. No one knew how long this epic defense battle would last. But some people knew that the hundreds of thousands of dark creatures were just the beginning. The dark creatures at the bottom of the cliff charged forward recklessly. They were like a huge meat grinder. Many of their comrades were crushed or trampled to death, but they continued to charge forward. 1 hour passed. 2 hours passed. 3 hours passed. The dark creatures never stopped attacking. The dark creatures never slowed down. Gradually, the players started to panic and even felt mentally exhausted. The officials of the gods liked to see the players trembling in fear. The official website kept updating with the news of human cities being conquered. The players of the archipelago continent suffered the most. Many small cities were breached. Countless dark creatures emerged from the depths of the forest and broke through some of the fortresses. Even the dukedom of the Indonesian players was attacked directly to the king's city. There was no other reason. It had nothing to do with William's theft of the military supplies. It was because the nations were still engaged in a naval war. It's terrible. It's a terrible massacre. The NPCs were all killed by the dark creatures. The garrison of a fortress did not last for 3 hours. They were all eaten by the dark creatures. Are the officials of the gods insane? Why is version 2.0 so bloody? A European female player complained on the forum. She posted many screenshots. The revival point of the dukedom's capital was filled with players. Many players have been killed multiple times, and half of their equipment had been destroyed. You're in a terrible state? Look at our archipelago continent. Motherf asterisk Kerr, it's already a naval war between countries. Our hometown has been attacked and overturned all the way to the capital. The number of NPCs killed is more than 100,000. A player posted 2 photos. One was taken before, and the other was taken now. He could only see the beautiful towns that had been reduced to ruins. Countless disgusting dark creatures filled the town, gnawing on the corpses of the NPCs. However, it was precisely the NPC corpses in the town that gave players a chance to escape. 9 continents. Dozens of players from other countries were complaining on the forum, constantly scolding the developers of gods for not being benevolent and moral. They had just started the league, and they had already made such a big move. They did not even give people a chance to celebrate. But gradually, some people realized something was wrong. Aren't the Chinese players the champions? Why aren't they saying anything? In the end, someone entered the Chinese forum to take a look. Wang Defa, what the hell was with this perfectly prepared fortification and this post comparing the number of enemies killed? The City of Dawn has the geographical advantage, so let's not talk about it. But why didn't the players from the Black Lava Dukedom feel sad? What the hell? The 5 defensive fortresses they built on the southern border were all unconventional fortresses that were more than 30 meters tall, but only 800 meters wide. Each fortress was garrisoned with 3 armies, 30,000 players, and many mercenaries. All kinds of defensive equipment were perfect. Because the city walls were short, many soldiers had time to rest. D*MN. Did the Chinese NPCs charge money? Otherwise, how would they know how to defend against the darkness invasion? A foreign player angrily created a post on the Chinese forum. But then, a player from the City of Dawn explained, I'm sorry, dear foreign friend. The Lord of the City of Dawn seems to have noticed the darkness invasion. He has informed our old enemy, the Black Lava Dukedom, as well as the Orc tribe and the Dragon tribe, who have fought hundreds of wars with us. In this war that is close to annihilation, our prince abandoned all grudges and worked together to survive. As for how he knows about the darkness invasion, it's not a big deal. Our prince is from the Blackleaf Elven royal family. You might not know about the Blackleaf Elves, but in the entire legendary continent, the Blackleaf Elves are ranked in the top 5. Hence, it's not surprising that the prince knows about the darkness invasion. These messages were posted by a female player named His Royal Highness's little wife. It was obvious that this female fan had created a new account. Otherwise, the name would not be so targeted. As for who spread the news, it was William who had asked Alex intelligence personnel to spread the news. Whether it was true or not, it could boost the morale of the army and stabilize the hearts of the people. It would even increase the popularity of the players. That was enough. Many foreign players had suffered greatly in version 2.0. Now that they saw that the Chinese players were able to defend the city and had not lost a single city, they were extremely jealous. But after knowing the truth, they could only sigh that the Chinese players had a powerful main character in the version. Many people started to find out what kind of legendary boss William was. But when they found out, they were shocked. William was a half-elf with the royal bloodline of the Blackleaf Elves. He was an advanced legendary boss. The Princess of the Moonlight Elves lived in the city. She was the prince and princess of the 2 major powers in the City of Dawn. William had participated in many battles in version 1.0. He had helped the Black Lava Dukedom attack the Iron Dukedom many times. In the end, the Black Lava Dukedom won, but the Lord of the City of Dawn was chased away. But now that William knew about the darkness invasion, he took the initiative to inform the Black Lava Dukedom and other old enemies. What was this called? He was broad-minded. He was simply a selfless superhero. As for why there were so many misunderstandings, it was not really a misunderstanding. The key was that William's exclusive category on the forum did not have any negative comments. His fans praised William as a messenger of justice, a fearless hero, and the most handsome man in the universe. But this was the truth, so William also gained the attention and fans of many forum players. At this moment, William did not have time to browse the forum. He was facing the attacks of 4 advanced devils and countless middle-level dark creatures. He did not have enough battle energy, and his health points had been reduced to the limit. He was on the verge of death, but since he had entered deep into the Dark Army, he naturally had a way to retreat. He had come here to find out how many experts and soldiers there were in the Dark Army. He had already killed many middle-level enemies and 2 advanced devils. He had achieved his goal. Bang! The epic advanced devil sent William flying with another slash. William was half kneeling on the ground. His body was covered in blood, but he did not die. Many devils were so angry that they gritted their teeth. William took a deep breath and raised his head. He glanced at the piles of corpses around him and was about to take out an escape device from his space ring. Suddenly, the dark clouds that shrouded the entire sky were broken by a ray of holy light. The holy light enveloped William. It was a holy light. William could clearly feel that his injuries were recovering rapidly. He could not help but widen his eyes as he looked at the sky. The other devils and dark creatures also retreated. They cautiously looked at the sky because it was the aura of an old enemy. Boom! A ray of light smashed into the ground, and smoke and dust rose. A pair of pure white wings gently spread out, and the smoke and dust dissipated. A serpent, no, an angel appeared in front of William. She tilted her head and looked at the man kneeling in front of her. She smiled and said, "Prince William, are you going to propose to me?" The city lord was speechless. He stood up and asked, "Where did you come from? Are the serpent race going to participate in the war?" The corners of Xian's mouth curled up slightly. "Not yet, but soon. As for how I came here," Xian unsheathed her dazzling long sword and smiled. "Of course, I'm returning home from the Sky City. I saw you getting beaten up when I passed by, so I came here." Subsequently, she dashed towards an advanced Grandmaster Devil. In the last moments of his life, the latter also heard a sentence. "Welcome, the judgment of the angel." A gigantic lightsaber with a pair of wings descended from the sky. Bang! The devil was instantly turned into ashes. All the dark creatures within a radius of 100 meters dissipated. Their souls were erased. The corners of William's mouth twitched. He could not help but use his insight on Xian. Xin, legendary. Level. 81 position level. Advanced occupation. Battle angel health points. 53130. She's very strong. She hasn't even transformed into her battle form. I remember that the training of an angel is very complicated. It's only been half a year. William could not help but complain. Before he could regain his senses, Xian grabbed his arm and lifted him up. The pair of pure white wings gently flapped, and the 2 of them flew hundreds of meters. Their speed was several times faster than William's beginner-level flying skill. The devils did not dare to pursue them. "We're leaving just like that." William wanted to complain. "Boss, you're so powerful. Why don't you kill a few more devils?" Xian glanced at William, who was hugging her arm tightly. Was he afraid that he would fall to his death? But she still explained, "The judgment of the angel is powerful, but I haven't practiced it to a high enough level. I can only use it once every few hours. Let's go back first." At the same time, she said, "The City of Angels is aware of the darkness invasion. They will send battle angels to various parts of the legendary continent. I'll be in charge of this region. I hope that Prince William can cooperate with me." OJBK. After William finished speaking, he was carried back to the City of Dawn like a dead pig. He was really tired. Xian did not know what he was saying, but she did not care. When she flew back to the City of Dawn, she saw 4 humans fighting in the Dark Army. But she did not stop. It was enough to save one. She could not save too many people. Burn Cinder and the others also saw the angel flying above their heads. The miniskirt was covered by the holy light, so they did not see anything. But the important thing was that the shameless angel had brought the prince away. He even waved his hand at them and said goodbye. The four of them were shocked. What did he mean? The prince and the angel had returned to the city, but they were still fighting here. Lautner sighed and said, "Let's go. Look at Prince William's body covered in blood. It must have been a terrible fight. When the devils rush over, no one will save us." Burn Cinder spat on the ground and nodded his head indignantly. No one could stop the four of them from retreating. But the endless war had just begun. As the dark clouds covered the sky, the dark creatures were not obstructed by the sunlight. The massacre never stopped. Chapter 209. The difference between the Seraphin and the angels was huge. Most importantly, the Seraphin did not have the holy radiance of the angels. When Xian and William flew back together, the players were stunned. Before they reached the City of Dawn, William had decided to fly back by himself. It was important to maintain his image, even if he did not have much battle energy left. Gosh, you've lost your insight. It's an angel. It's really an angel. A battle angel with long legs. It's Miss Xian. Isn't she a Seraphin? Has she become an angel? There must be something going on between her and Prince William, someone said in a deep voice. Some female players were speechless when they heard this. They did not even look at Xian. They might even curse her in their hearts. Many of them looked at William with pity. They were afraid that his handsome face would be ruined. After William landed on the city wall, he ignored his bleeding wounds and said in a deep voice, "There are more than 200,000 enemies, and their numbers are still increasing. There are at least tens of thousands of intermediate dark creatures. Chosen ones, please do your best to protect the City of Dawn. Don't worry, Prince William. I'll kill every dark creature that comes. If there are two, I'll kill two. That's right. Prince William has allowed us to settle down in the City of Dawn. This is our home. Whoever runs away is a coward." A human player named Vital Maidengua Gang raised her weapon and shouted. The other players shouted, "Just do it. Why are you talking so much? You're acting as if we're afraid of death." Prince William's experience points are abundant, and he even lent epic equipment to the professional players. He helped the Chinese players become the champions. If you want to run away, you'd better leave early. Otherwise, the 9 of us will kill you every time we see you, said Ma Huatang from an ordinary family. William took a deep look at the team of 9. It was hard for him to imagine how this group of weirdos had come together. Not only had they borrowed the names of historical figures from hundreds of years ago, but they had also changed their names beyond recognition. For example, Ma Yun, who had never touched money, the energetic girl Guodi Gang, the cute girl with big eyes Li Ronghao, the ordinary family Ma Huadeng, the unyielding Wang Zijing, the OK Sabanin of Peking University, the sweet wife Yu Yunpeng, the domineering CEO Li Shangyin, and Lu Dongxiang, who did not know his wife was beautiful. TSK. That was awesome. However, he didn't care what the players called themselves. After all, it had nothing to do with him. As long as they could speak up for him, it would be good. William looked at the normal player, Ma Huatang, with admiration. He secretly adjusted his affinity for him. Beep. William Blackleaf's favorability towards you increased by 10 points. At this moment, he was overjoyed. This was because favorable impression points from the prince were extremely valuable and extremely difficult to obtain. Until now, only Chongli Jioga, the super bootlicker, had managed to gain 143 favorable impression points. One could totally imagine that if he contributed in this defensive battle, he would be able to obtain a lot of favorable impression points. This would be of great help to him in the future. Forget about everything else. Just look at how fierce Chongli Jioga is now. And the premise was that the prince did not die. Of course, it was impossible for him to die. William even promoted a few players who spoke up for him. Hence, he did not need to motivate the players to fight. The players mobilized themselves and gathered their friends who were offline. Some of them did not participate in the battle and came to defend the City of Dawn. The City of Dawn had the geographical advantage, but the battle line was 13,000 meters long. Although there were not many dark creatures in every place, if the battle line was too long, they had to defend. In this way, there would not be much time for the players to rest. Hence, hundreds of thousands of players joined the defense battle in an orderly manner. This gave a lot of time for the NPCs to rest and recover. The crystal in the City Lord's palace was emitting light. Not only did it illuminate the entire city, but it also allowed people to clearly see the dark creatures at the bottom of the cliff. Fatty stood at a commanding height and broadcast live. Some novice players who could not participate in the battle and many foreign players who had been defeated were also watching. Even Fatty's live broadcast room was put on the front page of the official website because the defensive battle of the City of Dawn was too shocking. It was too beautiful. The orderly shield bearers stood at the edge of the cliff. There were a total of 10,000 shield bearers. More than 6,000 of them were middle-level professionals. These 6,000 middle-level shield bearers all had silver equipment sets and gold weapons. The quality of their equipment was so good that the foreign players could not believe it. But this was the strength of the City of Dawn, and it was only a portion of its strength. The half-meter solid city wall had been built some time ago. It was to prevent the players from falling. If the dark creatures appeared, they could use shield attacks to send them flying. Behind the shield bearers stood warriors with swords and spears. If the dark creatures were not sent flying by the shield bearers when they appeared, they would stab them with their spears and try to send them flying. That was right. The defensive battle of the City of Dawn did not require the players to kill their enemies. It only required the players to send them flying. Because the City of Dawn had the terrain advantage, as long as the dark creatures were sent flying off the cliff, they would be killed. The initial 500 catapults in the city had increased to 600 catapults. A total of 1,100 catapults were constantly hurling huge rocks. Meteors and fire rained down from the dark sky. Huge flaming rocks smashed into the ground, often causing great damage. However, they wouldn't cause fear to the dark creatures. The heavy-duty crossbows were not placed above the city wall. Instead, they were placed inside the cliff. They did not need to aim too much. They just had to shoot downwards. The audience could only hear the ear-piercing sound of the arrows piercing through the air and the dazzling enchanted iron arrows hitting the ground. Usually, they would hit a few enemies, but this wasted part of the advantage of the heavy-duty crossbows. The location was too high. If not for the fact that there were too many dark creatures, the crossbows would not have the advantage of skewering the dark creatures, and there were even more archers. Not only were there rangers shooting arrows from the arrow muzzles, there were also many non-regular professionals on the cliff. It was important to know. Rangers could shoot arrows, but so could warriors. Mages could also shoot arrows if they were strong enough, but they did not have the skills and were not very familiar with it. There were 200,000 professionals in the City of Dawn, but there were only 36,000 regular soldiers. Many civilian professionals picked up the bows at home or went to the military supply store to get bows and arrows. They just needed to shoot at the dark creatures below. As long as they could use battle energy, it was guaranteed that they could cause effective damage. Actually, many people were puzzled. How many resources had the City of Dawn prepared for this war? For example, tens of thousands of archers were shooting arrows. Not only were the arrows consumed, but the bows were also damaged. It was a waste, but William really wanted to tell them. There were not many arrows. There were only about 30 million arrows. Many people were still rushing to produce them, and there were not many bow parts. There were only about 300,000 sets of bow parts. But how did they come about? There was no need to explain in detail. Anyway, they had everything they needed to travel to the islands for a month. The defensive battle lasted from midnight to noon the next day. The dark creatures finally retreated. But this was not the end of the war. It was because the noon sun was too strong. It could penetrate the dark clouds that covered the sky. This was what the dark creatures were afraid of. And during this short truce, it was only 2 hours. 2 hours later, the dark creatures launched an all-out attack again. This was the terror of the darkness invasion. There was no rest until the darkness returned to the abyss, or when life was completely wiped out. But in the first battle, the City of Dawn stood on the cliff with a complete victory. Chapter 2:10. The sky was still covered with dark clouds. But at noon, the scorching sun rays penetrated the dark clouds and shone on the grass plain. The noontime sun was the hottest, and that was the main reason why the dark creatures retreated. How did the dark clouds form? Just by sensing the dark magic above their heads, one would know that it was not an ordinary dark warlock who could form such a large dark cloud. Or in other words, it was created by some powerful devil. The strategy of the darkness invasion in the 9 continents was the same. They used dark clouds to block the sunlight and countless dark creatures as cannon fodder to attack the human nations one after another, taking away all lives. In fact, many players and natives wanted to ask about the powerhouses of the continent. Where were they? Why did they not appear? They could easily destroy the Dark Army. Even if they did not want to do so, they could clear the dark clouds above their heads. They could give them enough time to take a breather, but William did not want to tell them the truth. The darkness invasion was not just a game for the gods and devils. It was the day that all the experts looked forward to, because only the sacrifice of lives could revive the gods' world. Only when blood flowed like a river could the endless magic become rich again. Only when countless deaths appeared would the space barrier become weaker. The arrival of the 4th era. The gods and devils wanted to descend. The experts wanted to become stronger. All the ambitious beings wanted their races to become the main characters of the 4th era. Hence, the sacrifice of a small number of people was unavoidable. In the eyes of the extraordinary beings, they were doing it for the greater good. They were doing it to start the 4th era. If they became the main characters of the 4th era, they would enjoy great luck for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. If that was the case, was the sacrifice of a small number of people worth it? Furthermore, the places that were invaded by the darkness were only some remote places on the continent. There were not many resources and people. Even if there were a small number of geniuses, they were nothing compared to the prosperous center of the continent. In the end, if they were not strong enough, they could only become pawns and be controlled by others. The City of Dawn had 2 enchanters, Moses and Old Band. But did Moses dare to attack? He was a person with the title of the Traitor of the Gods. William even knew that if this guy really went all out, there would definitely be people coming to kill him. What about Old Band? William wanted to ask him about it, but he had already left to participate in the war in the Moonlight Forest. It was a war that was far more terrifying and bloody than the darkness invasion in the southeast. It was a war led by saints. After a short rest, the City of Dawn officially changed its defense. Because there were hundreds of thousands of players helping to defend the city, the 36,000 regular soldiers didn't need to all be at the front lines. At least half of them were resting. After 12 hours of continuous defense, even an intermediate professional would be exhausted. This was not about the battle energy value that could be slowly recovered, but the hidden mental strength. At this moment, Xian flew towards the winged race. If everything went according to plan, the winged army would come to the City of Dawn to help defend. In the southeast corner of the Blackleaf Forest, the City of Dawn, the Orc tribe of Altaic, and the Great Dragon tribe were the first line of defense. The Serafkin resided within the forest. If Dawn City was destroyed, even if they had time to retreat, they would lose their homeland. Unfortunately, the leaders of the major tribes and races in the southeast corner were all ambitious existences. They didn't want to be devoured by the dark creatures, and no one wanted to be the second in command. They had to fight back against the dark creatures. William stood at the edge of the city wall and looked down at the corpses of the dark creatures. He said in a deep voice, "Legolas, use my space ring to move all the corpses back into the city. Burn the corpses that can't be moved. This is to prevent the spread of the dark world." Legolas nodded. He took William's ring and flew to the bottom of the cliff. No one knew how many dark creatures there were, but in the short span of 12 hours, their corpses had piled up to a height of 10 meters. If the corpses continued to pile up, the advantage of the cliff would be gone. The corpses of the dark creatures were also useful. Their bodies could be turned into various materials. There was nothing that could not be done. The main forces of the attack last night were skeleton soldiers, a few dark knights, those without horses, carrion monsters, devil hounds, and even the giant dark lizard, which was known as the killer of the players. The giant dark lizard was a kind of crawling creature in the dark world. It looked terrifying. There was no flesh on its head. Only its skull was exposed. Their tongues were very long and could easily swallow a professional. They were also very agile and could crawl faster than any dark creature. They were also the most difficult creatures to defend against in a defensive battle. Of course, this was only true for the City of Dawn. In fact, the taller carrion monsters made up of all kinds of corpses were usually more lethal. They were like trolls with great destructive power, and it was easier for them to cause an unparalleled impact on the city gate. But it was a pity. They couldn't see the city wall. They could only see the steep cliff. It was very difficult to climb up. Let FIU Roser lead 6,000 Tauren men to participate in the battle. William continued to give orders. In the past 6 months, the Tauren tribe had recruited many small and medium-sized Tauren tribes. Now, they had become a tribe with a population of 20,000. Hence, 6,000 Tauren warriors were not considered a lot. They were not part of the regular army. Yes, sir. Knox nodded. He waved his hand to let the messenger inform William. Why didn't he use the magic transmission scroll? He was afraid that this coward would pretend not to see it. William hesitated for a while and said in a deep voice, "Let Bloody Crusher lead the trolls to prepare for battle." "Yes, sir. I've already asked around. The Black Lava Dukedom is not facing a strong attack. If there are no accidents, the City of Dawn is the main target of the dark creatures. Next, assemble all 2,000 catapults." "Yes, sir. 800 heavy-duty crossbows are ready. Tell the archers to aim at the middle-level dark creatures. Don't be rash." "Yes, sir. Let the Breaking Wave Legion participate in the battle. Stop the warship Dawn vessel." "Yes, sir. Let the Blade Cavalry Legion go to where they should go. Tell them that a huge battle is waiting for them." "Yes, sir." Knox ordered the messenger again. "The Temple of Light, my lord, they have arrived. Including the Chosen Ones, there are a total of 1,300 Temple Knights and 1,000 pastors. Apart from them, the Temple of Darkness has also sent 1,500 professionals." William nodded. He glanced at Chu Liuqiu, who had not gone offline to rest, and the group of players. He said, "I'll leave the task of organizing the Chosen Ones to you. The beginner Chosen Ones can defend the places with fewer dark creatures. The middle-level Chosen Ones can head to the places where the battle is the most intense." "Yes, sir," Chu Liuqiu said in a deep voice. He felt that the real battle was coming. The chaotic battle yesterday was just an appetizer. "Then, let's have a meal and rest." William did not leave the city walls or the battlefield. His home was at the edge of the city walls. His city lord's mansion was near the cliff. He was the lord. He was the first line of defense. If the City of Dawn was conquered, his home would be the first place to be conquered. 2 hours passed slowly. The sunlight disappeared from the land again. The sky was dark and misty. Dark creatures that stretched as far as the eye could see appeared on the grassland once more. This time, there were more and more dark creatures, and they were more ferocious. There were tens of thousands of middle-level dark creatures. There were large dark lizards that were a few meters long. Their bodies were covered with hard scales, and black smoke was emitted from their mouths. There were thousands of them. There were tens of thousands of undead creatures. There were dark knights riding skeleton warhorses. There were zombies with black tattoos on their bodies. The goat-headed monsters were also common dark creatures. They were 2 to 3 meters tall and were very powerful. There were countless dark creatures of all kinds. There were 300,000 of them. The ones supervising the battle were the devils. There were many beginner, middle-level, and high-level devils. When everyone saw the second wave of darkness invasion, they felt a chill in their hearts. William did not rest. He did not have time to rest. He just stood on the city walls and waited for the enemies to arrive. Clang! The instant the 2,000 catapults launched the meteor shower exploded. Another defensive battle had officially begun. At this moment, there was a thunderous roar from afar. A clap of thunder could be heard from afar. Xian had returned. At the same time, a total of 12,000 Harpy soldiers had also arrived. They wore silver armor and had wings on their backs. They were like an angel army. The winged people did not dare to fight to the death. They just wanted to see the sky city that they had never seen before they died. But in the face of extermination, they were not afraid to fight. Next, Annie, who was also wearing a suit of shiny silver armor, had also led 3,000 personal guards to participate in the battle. At this moment, there were 35,000 pure-blood elves participating in the battle. Only a few elves who had no combat power were left behind. William turned around and looked at Annie, who had tears in her eyes. He understood. Annie seemed to know some information. Or rather, Old Band's departure could not be hidden from her. Her brother, the Moonlight Elven King, Cronus, had turned into the death god of the darkness and started a war against the elves in the Moonlight Forest. All the Moonlight elves in the Moonlight Forest were in the middle of a bloody battle. They had no reason to reject the war since they were in the Dark Forest. William sighed. He turned around and looked at the endless dark army. He pointed his sword forward, just like the previous night. He shouted, "For survival, follow me and fight. For survival, humans fight." All the humans in the city shouted. For survival, winged people fight. Xian led the winged army and shouted. For survival, elves fight. Annie unsheathed her long sword and shouted angrily. For survival, fight. Chapter 2:11. A thick bolt of lightning shot out. They were clad in armor and wielded blades. Just this move alone, the importance of a shield warrior and a sword warrior had never been forgotten. He could sense it, but he did not understand. How could he improve? He waved his blade again. Even Fiu Roser had no intention of retreating. If he retreated, it would mean death. If he retreated, it would mean the destruction of his tribe. He saw, but William clenched his fists. He knew that he had become stronger. But she did not stop. More enemies were climbing up the city walls. She wielded her legendary long sword and continued to kill. They were less than 1 meter tall, but they could fly at high speed. Their ear-piercing screeches were mental attacks. It was very annoying. The princess battle energy is very beautiful. It must be exclusive to the Moonlight Elves. Even if they were attacking the City of Dawn, at the top of the 80-meter cliff, warriors from the humans, elves, half-elves, winged people, dwarves, Tauren, and many other races gathered. When they raised their heads, they saw a group of bat-like winged demons in the sky. If they continued to defend, countless lives would be lost every day. 500 meters were occupied by the professionals of the Temple of Light. In the 9 continents of the gods, there was no nation that could defend against the invasion of darkness. They fought until 6 in the evening. Humans, Fiu Roser was a coward. The attacks on the cliff were the most intense. The winged warriors were brave and fierce. They wielded their long swords and killed countless enemies. Everyone standing at the front had to withstand the immense pressure. The headless demon fell to the ground in a crooked manner. Not a single one. Hence, the civilians, professionals, and players who had perished in the dukedom retreated to the territory of the Grand Duchy. Then, they organized their people and continued to fight back. They wanted to take back their homeland. This was battle awareness, because he had a feeling. To William, any act of showing off was meaningless. But the prince's expression did not change. He narrowed his eyes and gently pointed with his left hand. Some of the resting players were discussing. Although the battle line was long, there were too many players. Not everyone had a place to defend. The Taurens wielding axes and hammers were like killing machines. They killed the dark creatures. Thousands of dark creatures climbed up the city walls. Wow, Lucky Dream laughed. He liked Chu Yochio, who said that rich players relied on their equipment. Even if they relied on their equipment, they were still better than many noobs. At this moment, he could only swing his sword. An evil demon hiding in the darkness noticed that William was a little absent-minded. The other evil demons suddenly rushed out and slashed out a sword light that was more than 10 meters long, wanting to split William in half. Furthermore, green blood splattered on the white city wall. The saber chi also disappeared into thin air. Killing them was as easy as eating and drinking. His battle chi did not stop. The bull's roar shook the heavens. However, fear had already appeared in their hearts towards this fellow who had been killing for more than 10 hours without stopping. That was to use the simplest method The most energy-conserving move, the most effective skill, and the fastest way to kill the strongest enemy. At this moment, the battle continued without end. William sat cross-legged on the pile of corpses, slowly recovering his battle energy. He had forgotten what he had been doing for such a long time. He did not know what that state was called, but he knew. Defend winged demons. Someone suddenly shouted. A dark giant lizard had just climbed up the city wall when it suddenly stuck out its long tongue, wanting to swallow the elf in front of it. In this life, in an instant, countless dark creatures were sent flying or turned into ashes in midair. There was only one problem. She did not stand behind her personal guards. She held a long sword and stood at the forefront of the defense line. Thousands of temple knights and priests roared at the same time. "I'm invincible." Lucky Dream slashed an enemy and spat on it. Then he retreated from the battlefield and said, "All right, I'll listen to the leader of the champion team." For more than 10 hours, William did not stop killing. He had already reduced his unnecessary combat moves to the point where he couldn't reduce them any further. The saber-chi had yet to arrive. But even so, many winged demons flew into the city. They did not attack the frontline warriors. Instead, they wanted to ambush the civilians in the city. The Taurens were purely muscular. They were more than 2 meters tall, and they blocked the intermediate dark creatures. Battle awareness. William did not have anything in mind. After he became a native, he was getting closer to the feeling of sublimation in battle. Elves, the dazzling light, even caused many dark creatures to fall off the cliff. But there was no fear on his face. There was only calmness. If not, he would not have been able to survive. He would not have dared to fight the army alone. As a professional, apart from skills, all other combat methods had to be thoroughly honed. 1 month is too long. I don't know how many people in the City of Dawn will die. 1 week. At most, 1 week. Then the counterattack must begin. William defended the city wall. Just like the day before, he was still killing at the bottom of the cliff. But there were too many dark creatures. Once again, fearless dark creatures charged in front of him. When many catapults flew across the sky, they killed many winged demons. His fighting style could only be described with one word. He led 6,000 Tauren warriors to defend the city wall that was almost 3,000 meters tall. The Taurens had coarse skin and high defense. But now that they were wrapped in tough armor, their defense was even more insane. Yes, in his previous life, he had understood this. In this life, he had to understand the logic. Until 1 o'clock in the morning. Because the dark creatures did not dare to enter the territory of the Grand Duchy. They also did not dare to enter the territory of the kingdom. They would not even venture too deep into other places. For example, it was a waste to use the finger of Thunder God on an advanced Grandmaster Devil. Green blood splattered into the air. The dark giant lizard's tongue was split into 2. It was the same for its head. You're thinking too much. This is just... They brandished their weapons at the countless dark creatures in front of them. They could easily smash the enemy's head. Quick, wherever the sword flashed. Quickly finish them off. You're so powerful. I have to give you some powerful missions. Chu Liochio smiled. Thunder was incessant. The sword flashes filled with thunder reflected in his eyes. It seemed to illuminate the ugly appearance of the dark creatures. It was as calm as water. In other words, it's a pity that the princess doesn't seem to be using her ultimate move. It was only the second day, from 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Hence, Annie's reaction was not slow. She took a step forward and avoided the venom-stained tongue. She took the opportunity to slash the moonlight sword in her hand. Someone was plotting against him. It was not a simple trap. It was a deadly conspiracy. It was not about his attributes or level. His combat awareness had become stronger. The war had begun. Otherwise, he could only rely on numbers or attributes to suppress his opponent. William suddenly waved his sword again. Blue lightning swept across tens of meters, instantly clearing the area. At this moment, he looked at a group of dark creatures that wanted to approach him. He coldly laughed and said, "What are you looking at? If you don't want to die, go away." The valiant and heroic princess glanced at the dark giant lizard that was about to die. She kicked it again. The lizard flew back a few meters before crashing heavily on the ground. Then, a few unlucky creatures were crushed into meat paste. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the continent's top forces didn't just ignore them. They didn't want to give up on those lands. They had been fighting back for a year. The players thought that the princess would only be a commander on the battlefield. The second wave of dark creatures was stronger than the previous wave. Even though more than half of the dark creatures died at the bottom of the cliff or in the traps on the cliff, thousands of dark creatures still managed to reach the top of the cliff. They did not make any unnecessary moves. But what everyone didn't expect was, boom. It was only the second day of the darkness invasion. Subsequently, Holy Light, 1 month after the darkness invasion began. This invasion would last for at least a month. As long as the dark creatures did not attack, the experts would not cross the border. He killed 500 enemies, but he did not enter the border rashly. He did not want to be stopped by the devil who was the army supervisor. This was a joint attack. It was like a predetermined attack. This was not related to battle energy, skills, or physical fitness. Time passed. The strongest defense of the dukedom had defended the city for 25 days before it fell. It was already 12 o'clock in the morning. No one knew how the darkness invasion had been fought in William's previous life. Gosh, the princess is also a legendary and an advanced. Swish! He was immersed in the thrill of swinging his sword and gradually lost consciousness. Because in a life-and-death situation, a few milliseconds were enough to determine a person's life. Tens of thousands of irregular professionals drew their bows and released their arrows. Their battle energy arrows were like rays of light that flew into the sky and exploded in the sky. William was like a warrior who was unafraid of death. He killed wave after wave of enemies. But he looked at the dark creatures that had been killed with a single slash. Then he looked at the space ring. It seemed that many high-quality potions had been consumed. Life was not over. A crack appeared on the ground. Countless people saw a blue light that was 100 meters long appear below. It pierced through countless dark creatures and released hundreds of lightning bolts that hit other enemies. Time passed, but the City of Dawn was not unprepared. After 5 hours of bloody battle, the City of Dawn had killed more than 80,000 enemies while suffering only 1,300 casualties. The Temple of Light sent a total of 800,000 Temple Knights to help the defeated to rebuild their homes. But even if the intermediate dark creatures were weak, they could still cause damage. He still had room for improvement. It was not wise to waste time. He swung his sword. Hence, it was difficult for the players to fight against the NPCs one-on-one unless they had sufficient combat experience. The dark creatures that were not very intelligent gave way to the NPCs. As such, there were many players waiting in the back row to watch the battle. Thousands of winged demons were pierced and fell from the sky into the meat grinder-like battlefield. With the Saint Soul magic, he was more sensitive to danger. But in his heart, he had a bottom line. William smashed the head of a dark knight again. He pouted. "I'm waiting for you to come out. I didn't expect you to be so proactive. In 2 days, I've killed 4 advanced devils. It's not a loss." Hence, he knew that he had fallen into a certain state. Half-elves, their shields and swords glowed as they joined forces to form a light sword and shield that were hundreds of meters long. But William was already very strong in his previous life. There was another person who caught everyone's attention in this defensive battle. It was Annie, the Moonlight Elven Princess, who was rarely seen by players. Chapter 2:12. Dark clouds cover the sun. The bloody battle continued. The City of Dawn had many trump cards. Whether it was the reinforcements of the Seraphian army or the Tauren tribe's fearlessness, the players were shocked. And the Lord of Dawn, the prince, who was only 17 years old, was admired by countless players. He had killed countless enemies at the bottom of the cliff. The battle had lasted for more than 10 hours without stopping. He had killed the dark creatures alone. When he was meditating, not a single dark creature dared to come within 30 meters of him. What was this? This was a powerful expert, the most powerful expert in this area. But the most shocking thing was, at noon, it was supposed to be a short break. Just as the dark creatures were about to retreat, rumble. The cliff below the City of Dawn started to crumble. Two huge and heavy city gates rose slowly. No players knew about this. No one knew that a tunnel had been dug at the bottom of the cliff. No one knew that the City of Dawn was about to counterattack. When the dark creatures saw the two city gates rising, they even had the urge to rush in. But in the next moment, behind the left city gate, there was a burst of lightning that pierced through the battlefield within a radius of a few hundred meters. A total of 3,000 cavalrymen rode on thunder warhorses and galloped over the mountains of corpses. They instantly smashed the nearest dark creatures into a pile of meat paste. They were extremely fast. As for the city gate on the right, hundreds of trolls, led by Bloody Crusher, charged at the dark creatures. These trolls were wearing huge golden armor. The cost of manufacturing these armor was several times higher than that of a normal human soldier. But all of them were 3 to 5 meters tall. They were like steel giants that charged forward and overturned the dark creatures in front of the city gate. That's a cavalry legion. It's the Blade Cavalry Legion of the City of Dawn. A player shouted excitedly as he slapped the city wall. Not only are there heavy cavalry, but there are also trolls. My God, are the trolls our ally? There are more than 100 of them? Not only were the players shocked and bewildered, but the NPCs were also shocked. Logically speaking, it was difficult to control the trolls. They were more likely to become the dark creatures' allies. But the situation had changed. The trolls were no longer the dark creatures' allies. Instead, they had become the City of Dawn's killing machine. After the 3,000 cavalrymen charged out of the city gates, they quickly split into two groups. The human cavalrymen were all clad in golden armor, and so were their warhorses. They were like a torrent of metal as they charged into the dark race army. In front of the heavy cavalry was a person who was not riding a horse. It was William. He suddenly shouted, "Spears! Throw!" The entire army shouted. As the 1,500 cavalrymen charged, they pulled out their short spears from their waists and threw them forward. It was like a heavy crossbow, under the rapid inertia and the soldiers' enormous arm strength. When the short spear made contact with the ground, the dark creatures that were retreating fell to the ground one after another. Their heads and backs were pierced. Otherwise, they would have died on the spot. The most important aspect of heavy cavalry was that they could never rest. They could never slow down, or else they would become living targets for the Dark Army. Even though the Thunder warhorses were magical beasts, the same principle applied on the battlefield. As for William, who was at the front, he was the key to maintaining the heavy cavalry's speed. At this moment, he was like a bolt of lightning that pierced through the dark tide. The heavy cavalry behind him simply swung out streams of dense saber chi and used the momentum of the lightning warhorses to turn all the enemies they encountered into minced meat. The purpose of the heavy cavalry was to pierce through the dark army. He wanted to pierce through the dark race army and carve out a path of blood. Wherever he passed, there would only be death. Meanwhile, under the command of Legolas, the 1,500 light cavalrymen who had left the main battlefield shot out waves and waves of combat energy arrows, killing as many dark creatures as possible while they were at their wits' end. The light cavalrymen could rely on the speed of their mounts to keep up with the dark creatures. They kept moving around and shooting. It was very annoying, but the dark creatures could not catch up. This was the main point of light cavalrymen: never come into direct contact with the enemy. They were good at mounted archery and kiting. This was the main reason why the elves became light cavalrymen. They were very accurate. On the other side of the battlefield, Bloody Crusher led hundreds of trolls and charged into the Dark Army with unstoppable momentum. No matter what kind of monsters were in front of them, whether they were carrying monsters, zombies, specters, or dark knights, they were no match for their huge mace. It can even be said that, on this battlefield, the combat power of the trolls was much stronger than that of the other legions. The key was Bloody Crusher. This advanced troll with epic bloodline had dragon scales all over his body. He was nearly 6 meters tall and was fully equipped with dark gold equipment. His health was more than 100,000 and he held an epic mace. When he ran, he was like a tank that had gone out of control. A giant dark lizard that was a few meters tall, he hammered down. His body was instantly flattened. A. Carry a monster that was of similar height, rubbish bloodline, and no equipment. Let daddy give you some fatherly love. Bloody Crusher punched the troll into the air and landed on the ground. He stomped on the troll's head and crushed it. There were no other fancy moves. For the trolls, being reckless was the end. They only needed to charge with their mace. As for the ordinary intermediate dark creatures, they were no match for the trolls. The upper limit of intelligence was the trolls' natural enemy. The other advanced professionals of the City of Dawn seemed to have predicted that this would happen. They flew down the cliff and attacked the trolls while they were down. They wanted to cause the greatest loss to the dark creatures within these 2 hours. The massacre continued. At around 1:30 in the afternoon, the entire army returned. At this moment, the advanced combatants of the City of Dawn only rested when they recovered their battle energy. At other times, they were engaged in battle. Many people saw that the Lord had returned with injuries, but he still stood guard at the edge of the city wall. They wanted to go to the front and say, "Your Highness, take a rest. We can defend." But no one dared to say it. They could not say it either, because everyone knew in their hearts. It was precisely because the advanced combatants were defending the city wall that the City of Dawn could defend against the attack of the Dark Army. They would go wherever there was danger. They would appear wherever there were more dark creatures. For example, William. He had been fighting from the start to the end. He was always at the bottom of the cliff. He faced the most ferocious attacks and the most ferocious enemies alone. He killed his way to the dark creatures and took a detour. But the next day, the number of casualties was as high as 2,100. And next, how are they going to fight? Everyone was silent. Many people even felt hopeless. But William did not want to say anything. He just stood silently at the edge of the city wall like a statue that would never fall. He knew everyone could rest except for him, because he was the king in the hearts of the commoners. He was the invincible god of war and the most powerful lord in their eyes. As long as he was here, he would bring light and hope to countless people. He would also give his soldiers the belief that they would win. So he could not retreat. At least, it was far from time to rest, because the war would never stop. This was the darkness invasion. This was a war that could not allow for rest. Moreover, I'm half a player. I have data. My endurance and mental strength are slowly recovering. How can I be tired? William smiled faintly as he squinted his eyes and looked ahead. But now, if someone waved his hand in front of him, he might not be able to see it. Chapter 2:13. The darkness invasion never stopped. Out of the hundreds of thousands of players, only tens of thousands were still fighting. The rest had gone to sleep. The high-order professionals were also exhausted at this time. Their eyes were bloodshot. 3 days of continuous fighting was also a great burden for them. Even William, who was standing at the edge of the city wall, was able to fall asleep. It was enough to prove the intensity of the battle. D*MN. I need something to refresh my mind. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I'll fall asleep while fighting. If the dark creatures bite off my head, it'll be terrible. Odom shook his head violently. He had also advanced to the advanced level because of the marsh flower and the magical stones. But he was in a very bad state. His eyes were bloodshot, and his legs were trembling. It was as if he was drunk. We can rest, but the casualties will increase rapidly. Burned Cinder stretched his limbs and yawned as he replied. Xian was the last angel to participate in the battle. She glanced at the silent Annie and said, "Go and rest first, Annie, and I can hold off the dark creatures." "What's that?" "Let the princess carry us." "We're going to rest?" Albert was one of the few muscular moonlight elves. He was quick-witted and immediately rejected Xian. William was awakened by their noises. He secretly wiped his saliva and said with a heartache, "Stop talking nonsense. Everyone, take a drop to refresh your mind." Legolas' mouth twitched. He did not expect William to be such a stingy lord. He could not help but say, "1 drop? Do you think this is the life potion?" However, the moment he took the bottle and opened it, the rich life aura immediately made everyone feel refreshed. So, Legolas covered the bottle again and handed it back with a serious expression. "Your Highness, it's too precious. Everyone is just saying, it's not that we can't hold on any longer. isn't a little too extravagant to use the life potion to refresh our minds. Albert also rejected. Obviously, everyone treated the life potion as a gift from the Blackleaf elves to save William's life. Drink it first. There will be more in the future. Persevere. The day of the counterattack is not far away. William gave one drop to each of them. Everyone did not need to recover their health points. They only needed to use the aura of life to recover their strained mental strength. However, it had to be said that not only could the water of life extend one's lifespan, recover one's HP, and regrow limbs, but it could also instantly replenish one's exhausted mental power. When everyone heard this, they didn't stand on ceremony and kept the small bottles in their bosoms, waiting for the crucial moment to drink it. William did not bother about them anymore. He still had 8.5 bottles of life potion. Each bottle had 300 drops, so he had more than 2,400 drops. But they had many uses. Most of them were prepared for the seriously injured soldiers. As the main force of the last era, the elves were able to fight against the darkness invasion for 1,000 years. Wasn't it because of the water of life? It was a pity. With the world tree destroyed, the source of the legendary water of life had been cut off. When the elves fell into a period of decline, the humans took the opportunity to rise. After allying with the elves to defeat the dark creatures, they drove the elves into the forest and officially became the masters of the Third Era. The World Tree. William's gaze traversed through time and space, and he seemed to see a place. It's still too early to say this. William licked his lips. The World Tree had really exploded. But before it exploded, it had left behind a sealed sapling. What was interesting was he knew the location of the ancient ruins. In his previous life, not only the pure-blooded elves, but all the races in the 9 continents of the gods fought over the sapling of the World Tree. It was an earth-shattering battle, and the seas flowed backward. There were many legendary and sages who participated in the battle. The advanced professionals were not even considered dogs. They did not even have the ability to participate in the battle. Even the weakest professionals were epic-titled professionals. Only then could they participate in the battle. William laughed and rubbed his palms. But in this life, it's mine. But now is not the time to think about the World Tree. The key is to resolve the darkness invasion. William held the magic transmission scroll in his hand. He was waiting for the final moment to counterattack. Alec was the chief of the intelligence department of the City of Dawn. He had thousands of assassins under him, including many chosen ones. But as an advanced, he did not choose to participate in the battle. Instead, he headed east and handed the life potion to Christian of the Fearless Legion. The attack on the Dawn Fortress was not too strong. But as an advanced, Christian did not have time to rest. After Alec was done, he continued to the east and arrived at the territory of Altaic's Heavy Spear tribe. They were facing the darkness invasion. Altaic led all the combatants of his tribe to counterattack. As he did not prepare in advance, he suffered a lot of casualties. Out of the 80,000 orcs who participated in the battle, more than 10,000 of them had died in battle. This was when the pressure was not too great. Due to the high casualties, many people in the Heavy Spear tribe wanted to seek refuge with the dark creatures. But due to the pressure from the advanced brothers Altaic and Alls, as well as the opposition from the hundreds of pale orcs in the tribe, the other orcs did not dare to do so. But it could be imagined that if the casualties continued to increase, some orcs who were afraid of death would definitely choose to betray the tribe. Human, stop. A team of intermediate orcs was patrolling at the edge of the cliff to check if there were any dark creatures that had taken the opportunity to climb up. Then, they saw a human swaggering over. The patterns on his leather armor showed that he was a member of the City of Dawn. When the orc team saw this, they did not dare to act rashly. Both sides had stopped fighting for a long time. It was not the time to start a war. Alex stopped in his tracks. He saw countless orcs gathered at the edge of the cliff to defend. He said in a deep voice, "Go and tell Altaic that the Lord of Dawn wants me to talk to him." The Lord of Dawn? The orc patrolling team trembled. The name of the Lord of Dawn was too famous. They could not help but be afraid. Among them, the orcs were most afraid of the Dragon Slayer. Even though the Lord of Dawn was their enemy, in the eyes of the orcs, he was still an admirable expert. One of the orc captains pondered for a while and said in a low voice, "Wait here. I'll go and inform the chief." Alec nodded calmly, gesturing for the orc with the coarse voice to return as soon as possible. It did not take long. The tall and muscular Altaic returned with green blood all over his body. He dismissed the other orcs and looked deeply at Alec. In a deep voice, he said, "Help me thank the Lord of Dawn for the 2 marsh flowers. Why are you here today?" "Chief Altaic, you're too polite. Are you interested in counterattacking the dark creatures?" Alec smiled. "Benefits?" Altaic asked bluntly. He knew that the Lord of Dawn had given him 2 marsh flowers to make him and his brother more powerful. He also knew that the power of the City of Dawn was not something that the Heavy Spear tribe could contend with. But he did not understand why the Lord of Dawn would do this. Was he not an enemy? Did he think that by giving him 2 marsh flowers to help him and his brother advance to the advanced level, he would submit to him? How is that possible? As the pride of the Pale Orcs and the descendant of a legendary expert, he would not allow himself to submit to anyone. Benefits? Alex sneered and said bluntly, "The benefit is that you can take away the dark creatures you kill. The benefit is to eliminate the dark creatures and protect your clan. The benefit is to survive and not become the dogs of the dark creatures." "Are you saying that I'll become the lackey of the dark creatures?" Altaic glared and roared. The sword in his hand radiated with golden light. "Don't be angry. You're an advanced, and so am I. Even if I can't defeat you, can't I escape?" Alec continued calmly. His Highness had already foreseen the darkness invasion. This was also one of the reasons why he gave you the marsh flower. More importantly, Prince William admires your character. Otherwise, you can compare the power of both sides. If the City of Dawn joins forces with the Serafkin, it will be easy to destroy you. Alex saw that Altaic was about to start a fight. He waved his hand and said, "I'm just telling the truth. Prince William admires you, so he gave you a chance to become an advanced. Otherwise, do you think that the Dragon Slayer, the Lord of the City of Dawn, and the Blackleaf Prince will look up to everyone? Prince William thinks highly of you, so he decided to join forces with you. As for the others, they're not worthy." When Altaic heard this, he was secretly delighted. Yes, Altaic and the Lord of Dawn were at the same level as each other. He was an expert at the same level as the Dragon Slayer. Altaic was the prince of the Blackleaf Elves. No, what was going on? Was it worth being happy that someone looked up to me? Altaic bit his tongue and said, "We can retaliate, but with just the City of Dawn and the Heavy Spear clan?" Alex saw that Altaic had forgotten about the benefits. He laughed and said, "You don't have to worry about that. The Black Lava Nation, the Serafkin, and the former Great Dragon Clan will attack at the same time. Keep this magic scroll with you. When the light of dawn shines in the darkness, it will be time for all of us to counterattack." After saying that, Alec waved his hand and disappeared into the darkness. Altaic kept the scroll in a daze. Retaliate? That's fine. My subordinates only know how to rely on the dark creatures. *MN, I don't want to be a lackey anymore. I don't want to rely on others. Altaic clenched his fists tightly. As for where Alec had gone, he went to the former Great Dragon Clan and the current Fire Race. However, it was not easy to negotiate with those people. There were too many races in the Fire Race, and the chiefs were scheming against each other. If not for the fact that they had to fight against the increasingly powerful Heavy Spear clan, the Fire Race would have fallen apart. Furthermore, the dark creatures were invading. The Fire Race was the most likely group of people to become traitors. No matter what, Altaic had to make a trip to the Fire Race, because darkness was darkness. Light was light. Chapter 214. When the players went online again, it was already the afternoon of the 4th day. The darkness invasion was as usual. War, endless war. The dark creatures would attack the City of Dawn in numbers of 200,000 to 300,000 every day. More than 200,000 dark creatures had died at the bottom of the cliff. But the number of professionals in the city had reached 6,300. There were also close to 3,000 severely injured and disabled. This meant that at least 3 legions had lost their combat power. Although it wasn't just the regular army that had died, as there were players of various races and professions, such a high casualty rate still shocked many players. After Chu Liuqiu went online, he organized his men to help defend the city. For days had passed. Now, more than 30,000 players had successfully changed their occupations. After obtaining intermediate equipment, their combat power increased tremendously. They had become a new force. They were the kind of Ironhead Legion that was not afraid of death, pain, and endless energy. And now, the growth of the players had finally reached the stage where they could help. This gave the regular army some breathing space. At the same time, many players were refreshing the official website and forum. Many female players were crying. The darkness invasion had covered a large area. According to the official statistics, in just 4 days, 8 dukedom cities had fallen, and hundreds of cities had been occupied by dark creatures. The death toll of NPCs in the 9 continents had exceeded 7 million, and it was rapidly approaching the 10 million mark. Now, many players' main cities had been destroyed. They could only flee to the grand dukedoms to survive. On the forum of the foreign players, not only were there scolding, but there were also many crying voices. The players were scolding the game planners, the officials, and the powerful NPCs for not doing their jobs. The ones who were crying were the lively NPCs that they loved and hated. They had died just like that. There were photos that were too horrible to look at, and videos that could not be described with words. After the dark creatures devoured the humans in the small dukedoms, they did not dare to enter the grand dukedoms. They went crazy in search for the remaining creatures. No matter what race they were, whether they were humans, wild beasts, or magical beasts, the dark creatures were like a black tide that pounced on them and tore them apart. The wild beasts' wails lasted for a few seconds before they died. The corpses of the wild beasts would not last for long. In just a few minutes, a white skeleton covered with teeth, marks appeared in front of him. The hordes of dark creatures were like monsters that would never be full. They would continue to sweep through the surviving creatures. All the novice villages of the players were met with a calamity. Only legendary continent. In the beginner's village of the Chinese players, not only did the battles go well, but there were also not many casualties. After all, the tens of thousands of casualties suffered by the City of Dawn and the Black Lava Dukedom were nothing in the eyes of the foreign players. In fact, at this point in time, the players also understood. Version 2.0 of the Darkness Invasion would affect all future versions. Fighting against the creatures of darkness would also become a theme. Or in other words, the main battle between the light faction and the dark faction. This war was not divided by version, time, or location. One of the meddlesome American players even posted a list of the strength of the novice villages in Pantheon. You can only see the true combat power of the players' nations in the face of the Darkness Invasion, because those with weak combat power, such as the archipelago countries, were already half dead. I'm telling the truth. Players from the archipelago countries, please don't scold me. With the start of version 2.0, many advanced professionals have appeared or achieved breakthroughs. It's no longer just a few of them. The City of Dawn has the most advanced professionals. There are about 5 to 8 of them, which is twice the number of the other dukedoms. Hence, the City of Dawn is undoubtedly the strongest, because the City of Dawn has many advanced professionals and a strong military force. I watched the live broadcast. The regular army of the City of Dawn is only about 30,000 people, but half of them are intermediate professionals. They also have silver and gold equipment sets. What does this mean? This is equivalent to the royal guards of other dukedoms. They can fight against 2 enemies at once, especially when they are all boss level. This situation is simply unimaginable. I believe many players have seen the power of the pure-blooded elves. The combat power of the 2 pure-blooded elves in the City of Dawn is at least a few times higher than that of the human army. Think about it. How powerful is a boss-level legion? The 30,000 soldiers are even stronger than the 100,000 soldiers of the other dukedoms. In second place is the Dome King City of the Americas. This city is built on a 1,300-meter-tall, domed mountain peak. Close to 100,000 regular soldiers and 200,000 players have gathered there. Their power is unfathomable. Every day, I see the dark creatures charging at us and being repelled. I feel a sense of security. In my opinion, the top two cities have the possibility of defending against the darkness invasion. After all, the terrain is very important. As for the third place, it should be the opponent of the City of Dawn, the Black Lava Dukedom. This nation has annexed the Iron Dukedom and gathered a lot of manpower, resources, and financial resources. In half a year, they have built a defense line on the southern side. There are also 5 military fortresses. Yesterday, one of the fortresses fell. Now, there are only 4 remaining. However, the military power of these 4 fortresses is even stronger. The Legion of the Black Lava Dukedom is not stupid. When they realized that they could not hold on for much longer, they abandoned the city. Hence, they distributed their military power to the 4 fortresses. This makes it much easier to deal with the dark creatures. The players' ranking of the various nations was published. Many nations on the archipelago began to curse. Many players felt that the ranking was not worthy of its name. How could a neutral lord like the City of Dawn, which only had 30,000 soldiers, be ranked first? It was obviously a fake ranking. The players started a war of words again. However, the legendary continent became even more popular among the players. The forum would not restrict the players from other nations. However, the players did not know what to say in the forums of other nations. They did not have a common language, so they could only curse and curse. Angry Fatty saw that his popularity was increasing. He could not help but feel confused. What was going on? Why were there comments in foreign languages? What the hell was going on? But it was a good thing to be popular. He only needed to do a good live broadcast and give Prince William the best shot. Everyone, pay attention. Prince William is going all out. Oh my God, look! This is Prince William's cataclysmic thunder. It's an attack that covers a large area. Tens of lightning bolts descended, and all the dark creatures within a 100-meter radius were wiped out. Suddenly, a ray of holy light flashed across the camera. Fatty quickly shifted the camera, but he could only sigh helplessly. It should be Angel's Judgment. It's a pity that I didn't get to see the full shot. If you want to see it, you can look at my previous live broadcast. This move is super cool. The Seraphican players will be blessed in the future. If you learn Angel's Judgment against the dark creatures in the future, you'll be able to kill some dark bosses in seconds. The comments in the live broadcast room did not stop. The Temple Knight, am not convinced. After awakening the light attribute, my light element battle energy is enough to defeat the dark creatures. We are the main force against the 10,000 dark creatures. Yes, the cleric, am not convinced. The Thunder Element Warrior, am not convinced. I won't be at a disadvantage after awakening the City Lord card. I won't be fooled. A wizard with an epic longsword, am not convinced either. Boss. The occupation of a wizard was very strange. After reaching the intermediate level, they could only awaken the light or dark element. Unlike mages who could only specialize in a single element after reaching the mid-level, wizards could learn all kinds of magic and possess all kinds of strange witchcraft. To become stronger, there was another condition. That was to read books. There were countless magic books in the Gods continent. The more wizard players read, the stronger their witchcraft skills and other branch skills. They could even make other branch skills as powerful as the light and dark elements. But what were magic books? They were painstakingly written by NPCs. Otherwise, they would have gone to great lengths to collect them. Why would they lend them to others to read? Of course, it was not impossible to borrow them. They could pay. If they had enough money, they could even sell them to you. Therefore, the real pay-to-win bosses were not rangers, warriors, assassins, or mages, but wizards. Mages could call them spellmasters. Wizards would really be able to call them great mages. If the future of a wizard was to specialize in one path, then wizards were even more advanced and powerful. Wizards were even more advanced, more powerful, and proficient in multiple types of super mages. They didn't need to learn another subclass, which required a lot of EXP. At most, they would need to spend some EXP on skills. It could even be said that wizards with countless books could beat mages of the same level. But weak wizards were really noobs. They could not specialize in close combat. They could only use all kinds of strange witchcraft to harass their enemies. But a small number of wizard players would go on a rampage after reaching the intermediate level. Intermediate magic books? How much for one? Let's take a look at 100 books. Wizard robes and wizard hats? I don't want them. Don't you know my sub-profession is warrior? Give me a main armor and a secondary armor. That's right, armor. An epic longsword and an epic staff in each hand. Then it would be over. Cough. But this kind of wizard player was undoubtedly a god-level pay-to-win boss. Do not provoke them. Otherwise, they might swing their staff and use close combat to beat a warrior to the ground. As time passed, it was the 7th day of the darkness invasion. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This time, the formation of the dark creatures was completely different. Or rather, the dark creatures used to be disorganized and disorganized. But this time, a figure that looked like a demon was actually arranging the 500,000 dark creatures into a formation. The hundreds of thousands of players also recognized him. Gerda, the founder of the Freedom Alliance of the Iron Nation and the conspirator. Even though half of his face had rotted and he had become a demon-like monster, the players recognized him. William looked at him with a fatigued expression. Gerda and William looked at each other. Then, he glared at Augustine, who was also hostile to him. He flew into the sky. He shouted, "Lord of Dawn, today is Rumble." The heavy city gate at the bottom of the cliff suddenly opened. What entered Shroud's vision was not the heavy cavalry that gave Gerda a headache. It was not the trolls either. Instead, it was a group of giants that were tens of meters tall. They were hundreds of great silverback apes had joyful expressions on their faces as they carried huge golden maces in their hands. In that second, countless people swallowed their saliva. In that second, Gerda felt a little sad. In that second, a ray of white light pierced through the clouds in the city of dawn. At the same time, 3 rays of white light shot into the sky from the south and east. William looked solemn. He slowly walked forward. His body was burning with thunder flames as he flew into the sky. There was no nonsense. There were no unnecessary movements. He just did it in front of countless people. He pointed his sword at the Dark Army in the north. At that moment, the war drums of the City of Dawn were sounded for the first time. At that moment, the hundreds of running silverback apes were like a stampede of beasts. At that moment, the 200,000-strong army charged forward. This was the City of Dawn. This was what it meant to be a professional. Every one of them had the courage to face the darkness with their backs to the light, and the swords in their hands. It was a gift to welcome the arrival of darkness. Chapter 2:15. William had been idling on Stormy Island for 3 months. Was he really going to do nothing? What was he doing? He was trying to increase the affinity of the silverbacked apes. After William entered Stormy Island and discovered that the silver-backed apes were easy to talk to, he had an idea. What kind of creature was the silver-backed apes? They were definitely creatures from the mythological era. This rare race only existed on Stormy Island, and there were only a few hundred of them. The Beeman beasts outnumbered them, but they were extremely powerful. Their bloodline potential was not impressive. Most of them were advanced or grandmaster, and a few of them were epic. But in terms of the same level, they were not weaker than the Beeman beasts. The silver-backed apes were the overlords of Stormy Island. But William wanted to borrow their strength. What should he do? First, he had to increase the affinity of the silver-backed apes. At least he could ask them out. Hence, 3 months passed. William continued to increase the affinity of the apes. In the last week, he managed to trick the silver-backed ape boss, which was a level 93 epic boss, away. Then, he dragged away, and beat the ape until its health was low. Then he used thousands of soul control spells on it. Finally, he managed to control it. After William had complete control over the monster, he then began to attack the tribe of silverback apes, promising them many benefits. For example, weapons. The silverbacked ape leader had a lot of say in the tribe. He could even lead them to declare war, but it was only limited to Stormy Island. If they were allowed to leave Stormy Island and walk out of their homes, they would enter the whirlpool-like space door and arrive at an unfamiliar territory. Many of them refused to do so, but when the golden mace that was 5 to 6 meters long was delivered to them, this group of silly creatures started to laugh happily. After all, this thing was much stronger than a random tree. They did not want to let go of it, even when they were sleeping. After Brew, who was the boss, persuaded them to leave Stormy Island and help William fight a war. They only had one chance. William saved the number of times they could fight until the end. Otherwise, he could only bring Brew to help. He could not bring the entire tribe. At this moment, more than 300 silverback apes that were 7 to 8 meters tall, and some were even more than 10 meters tall, instantly shocked the entire battlefield. Not to mention the dark creatures that weren't too tall. The troll, Bloody Crusher, was like a little brother to them. Just now, when he walked through the passageway of the gate, as soon as the silverback ape appeared, the troll withered. The Thunder Warhorses were terrified as well. Everyone made way for them to be the first wave to fight. Gerdanasi saw a group of bulldozers suddenly appearing on the battlefield, and his vision blurred. He quickly wiped his eyes with his sleeves, almost thinking that it was an illusion. But as the ground trembled, a series of earth-shattering roars rang out. He knew that this was the truth. Roar! As the leader of the silverbacked monkeys, Brew was furious. He didn't dare to rebel against William, because he knew how cruel that evil master could be. This guy sent him delicious food and drinks every day for so many days. Then he told him that he had another big gift for him, but that thing was too big to move. Brew thought for a long time and decided to take a look. But when he left the territory and walked to a huge cave, he felt that something was amiss. But the gift on the ground wasn't fake. Hence, he ate it. He fell to the ground. After that, he was tortured and abused for 3 days and 3 nights, causing his monkey life to become confused. It was only when he completely surrendered to the evil little monkey that he was finally freed. Roar, roar, roar. Brew roared crazily. He wanted to vent all his anger on the monkeys. The leader of the silverbacked monkeys sounded the battle horn. Hundreds of silverbacked apes charged forward. Many live streamers didn't charge into the battlefield. They stood at the vantage point and recorded the live broadcast. They couldn't describe what this scene was called. Crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood? Flattening? Or should it be called, as I walk by, I step on a group of ants in passing? That was the situation. More than 300 silverback monkeys were the vanguard. They swung their 6-meter mace and charged into the Dark Army. In a flash, the formation of the Dark Army was crushed without any resistance. They couldn't retaliate at all, and these big fellows crashed through the Dark Army without stopping at all. Such a scene. The devils who were supervising the army were dumbfounded. What was that? They had never heard of such creatures in the Blackleaf Forest. Even if there was a giant dragon, everyone could think of a way to kill it. But with so many gorillas, who would be able to hold them off? Even the devils couldn't withstand a few thousand kilograms of mace. Charge! The Blade cavalry charged behind the silverback monkeys. They didn't dare to be too close to the monkeys. They hit at least 1,000 meters away. Even so, many unlucky dark creatures would fly over from thousands of meters away from time to time, whether they were smashed by the mace or thrown over. In short, there were dark creatures everywhere in the sky. The silverbacked apes, which were more than 10 meters tall, charged through the air like tanks charging into the infantry army, and the latter died a horrible death. Retreat, retreat. Gerdanasi gritted his teeth and said. At the same time, a series of magical transmissions were heard. The Black Lava Dukedom, the Altaic tribe, and the Flame tribe are all attacking. A high-level legendary demon crushed the scroll fiercely. He was about to explode from anger. They were the vanguard of the Darkness invasion. The other vanguards of the 9 continents had the upper hand. Even the other vanguards of the legendary continent had the upper hand. But in the southeastern corner of this remote area, the dark creatures had suffered heavy losses. They hadn't conquered the large forces yet. Now that the dark creatures were fighting back, if they conquered the Devil's Den, he didn't know what kind of torture he would suffer when he returned. No, let's fight it out with them. The advanced legendary devil suddenly roared. Don't. Let's return to the Devil's Den first. We have the terrain advantage there, and they won't dare to enter. Moreover, their alliance only lasts for a short period of time. Everyone is scheming against each other. As long as we avoid this, they will definitely lose. Gerdonaces was acting as a military advisor, but he was right. Besides the Black Lava Dukedom, William couldn't completely control the Heavy Spear tribe and the Flame tribe. If the counterattack failed, the alliance would naturally fail. Just as the Devil Boss was about to nod his head, a light sword that was hundreds of meters long descended from the dark clouds behind them. It carried with it an endless amount of holy light. It fell straight into the Devil's Den. Boom. Half of the Devil's Den exploded, and a shock wave spread in all directions. The dark clouds in the sky were torn apart, and 3,000 temple knights riding on Pegasi descended from the sky. How is this possible? The temple knights will attack in a month's time. The advanced legendary devil looked at them in disbelief. But William wanted to tell him, "Brother, what's going on? Are you saying that only the Dark World has an agreement with the top experts of the continent? Can't I make an agreement with Lancelot? I've asked him to do me a favor that doesn't violate the Knight's Creed. Is it against the Knight's Creed to attack the dark creatures in advance? Of course not. If Lancelot couldn't stop the invasion of the dark creatures in advance, it would be a stain to his Knight's Creed. Or rather, it would be an insult to every temple knight. Now that he had an excuse similar to an oath, what could Lancelot do even if he sent his troops ahead of time? Counterattack. It was officially activated. Chapter 2:16. This was a war that concerned the fate of all the races in the southeast. From a moment the horn of counterattack was blown, the once powerful dark creatures were defeated by the Dawn army and retreated into the Devil's Caves. But Lancelot's appearance cut off their retreat. Half of the Devil's Caves were destroyed, and the space doors were destroyed. The dark creatures lost their continuous reinforcements. Many dark creatures were on the verge of death after being baptized by the holy light. That was the Temple Knight's super combination skill. Descent of the Holy Sword. The higher-ups of the Temple of Light intended to send 800,000 Temple Knights to attack the dark creatures a month after the Darkness invasion. At the same time, they would help the various countries recover their territories. However, not all the Temple Knights were so powerful. The Temple Knights, led by Lancelot, were known as the Sword Saint Knights. All of them were second-generation knights. That meant that their fathers were Temple Knights. Even the weakest of them possessed high-grade bloodlines. They wore gold-grade equipment sets and rode on winged Pegasi. They descended from the clouds. They were covered in holy light and wielded holy swords. They were like heavenly soldiers descending from the sky. The charging players widened their eyes in disbelief. Many of them were so shocked that they could not close their legs. The darkness will perish. Sword Saint Knights, follow me and charge. With Lancelot's roar, 3,000 Temple Knights rode on their white Pegasi and charged towards the ground. Just as they were about to charge into the Darkness army, everyone radiated holy light again. With Lancelot at the lead, they formed a long and narrow triangle. They were like a holy sword that pierced through the Darkness army. Oh my God, this is so fierce. Some players stared at the Temple Knights in disbelief. The dark army that was tens of thousands of meters long had pierced through the Temple Knights in a short period of time. After making a big turn, it seemed like they were going to do it again. Most dark creatures had no morale. But anyone with a discerning eye could tell that when the dark creatures faced the holy light or light element professionals, they would retreat and be fearful. TSK, Prince William's Blade Cavalry Legion isn't weak. It's just that they can't fly. Someone was unhappy that the Temple Knights had stolen the limelight. But that was the truth. When the blade-heavy cavalry charged into the Dark Race army, all the Thunder Warhorses released lightning at the same time. The lightning bolts that blanketed the ground connected together. It was like an ocean of lightning. In the blink of an eye, the dark creatures within a kilometer were defeated and dealt a devastating blow. Especially when these magical beast warhorses galloped, no one could stop them. William did not have the time to speak. He was already staring at Gerdonaces. He did not care about the violent silverbacked monkeys and allowed them to wreak havoc in the Dark Army. The reason for that was because the HP of this group of bastards was simply abnormal. Each of them had hundreds of thousands of HP. Unless many demons joined forces to attack one, the ant-like dark creatures would not be able to cause any effective damage to them. It could even be said that their HP recovery speed was even faster. Burn Cinder, follow me. You go and stall the advanced devil. William and Burn Cinder transformed into two rays of blue and red light and started running in the dark tide. The colors of the Dochi were distinct. Everywhere it passed, the straight lines were filled with crushed corpses. Advanced versus intermediate. Unless there were a few intermediate with higher bloodline. Otherwise, they would not even be able to break the advanced battle energy shield. Due to the difference in levels, attributes, bloodline, and battle energy quality, it was very difficult for a normal intermediate to face the two advanced legendary bosses. The battle reached its climax in a short period of time. Furious roars could be heard from the northern battlefield. There were many advanced from the Black Lava Dukedom. There was Tyrannosaurus Rex, who had muscular arms that could run horses, Whales, who was an Earth Elemental Shield warrior, and Diablo, who had disappeared in front of everyone, but had stood up against the Darkness invasion. They led the royal guards of the Black Lava Dukedom and pierced into the heart of the Dark Army like a heavy sword. Among the royal guards of the Black Lava Dukedom, there were 300 fire elemental super warriors. They were the dragon's blood warriors. At the moment when the Black Lava Dukedom counterattacked, it also exploded with unparalleled lethality, killing the few dark creatures in Madrid and forcing them to retreat step by step. What the F***CK? When Madrid saw this scene, he could not help but curse. He muttered, "I told you to kill the Black Lava Dukedom first. That idiot always wants to attack the City of Dawn. He's really stupid." The Dark Warlock was fearful of William because he had been tricked by William twice. He had planned to trick William in the Misty Valley, but he had been tricked. He did not expect William to appear in the dragon-slaying battle, but he had been tricked again. The more he interacted with William, the more he felt that this young prince, who had almost been killed by him, had unleashed his true nature. Maka Malik was now extremely regretful. Why did he play a soul trick at that time? He should have just killed him with one move. It was unnecessary to make William fall from the tree and pretend that he had fallen to his death. I'm leaving. I'm going to leave this place and go to the Emerald Grand Duchy. I'm convinced that they lost to the Darkness invasion. Seeing this, Madrid did not care if the demons had any other tricks up their sleeves. After all, he was not a lackey of the devils. In fact, he had tricked many devils to death. Everything he did was to become stronger, to become even stronger. Now that the invasion of the Darkness in the southeast region had failed, not only would the demons be punished, but the dark sorcerers who were guiding the invasion would also suffer. It's not a bad idea to change my allegiance to a devil lord. Madrid pondered for a while and looked at the devil beside him. Wait for me. I'll go and get reinforcements. I'll be back soon. The advanced devil widened his eyes and was about to speak. The old devil transformed into a wisp of black smoke and entered the devil's Denver. The 200,000 soldiers of the Dawn Army faced off against half of the millions of dark creatures. They easily defeated the dark creatures. The other three armies faced lesser pressure and forced the dark creatures back into the devil's Denver. The 12 legions of the Dawn Army and the 6 reserve legions that had returned from Stormy Island worked together to advance. Looking from a sky, a total of 18 legions, divided into 54 small battle formations, pushed forward step by step on the battlefield that was full of burning flames and stones. The elves never retreated. When they fought, they did not make a sound. They only swung their sabers again and again. The human legions roared as they charged into the enemy's ranks. The Harpy army of 10,000 was now down to just 8,000. They followed behind Xiyin, spreading their pure white wings as they charged into the darkness creatures with incredible speed. Under Fiu Roser's lead, the Minotaurs bent their backs and used their horns as weapons to charge forward. There were deaths everywhere on the battlefield, but the sound of the war drums could be heard for hundreds of miles. The warriors roared furiously, piercing through the dark clouds and reverberating in the sky. Countless people were fighting. This was a war that involved millions of races. It was like the stories told by bards. It was epic and magnificent. No one knew how long this final battle would last, but everyone understood in their hearts. Light and darkness. Only. Death. Incessant. Chapter 217. Kill. An advanced legendary devil saw William and Burn Nazis charging at him. He led a group of advanced devils to surround them. But William's target was Gerda Nazis. This traitor had to die, and he had to die in William's hands. William quickly glided across the ground, leaving a charred trail. He bypassed a few devils and slashed 9 times. Tens of meters of thunder, sword energy instantly cut off Gerda Nazi's escape route. Burn Cinder stopped the other devils. William roared and charged at Gerda Nazis again. Augustine Watt. Gerda Nazis widened his eyes in disbelief. He saw that the person he loved the most was actually helping the evildoer. F***C off. William kicked Gerda Nazis to shut his mouth. Only God knew if Moses' memory-erasing spell was effective. After all, movies, novels, and serials had all sorts of lost memories. William did not want to be tricked. But Burn Cinder did not respond to Gerda Nazis because he had no time. His lord had left, and he could only block the 4 advanced devils. He could not hold on much longer. Oh, respond to me. Why? Why? Gerda Nazis, whose face had rotted, was extremely unwilling to give up. He was calling for his former lover. Swoosh. An advanced devil that was attacking Burn Cinder felt a sharp pain in his back. Then his entire body was split apart. That was because Annie, who was riding on a unicorn that was glowing with 7 colors, had launched a sneak attack from behind. She had used the legendary longsword in her hand to split the demon into 2. D***M in it. Kill that elf and that unicorn. The advanced legendary devil flapped his wings and called for reinforcements. In a short period of time, a few black shadows broke through the air and instantly surrounded Annie and Burn Cinder. Burn Cinder finally replied, "Don't F***king call me AO. I just can't find the time. Otherwise, I would have smashed that rotten face of yours into pieces. You're so ugly, but you still dare to come out and scare people. If I were you, I would have committed suicide in shame." That sentence. Gerda Nazis' fragile heart was severely injured. He was once again sent flying by William. But at this moment, he forgot about the pain in his body. He forgot about everything. Only that sentence kept echoing in his ears. That was the sentence of using a knife to dig deep into his heart. "Why, hey you, if you dare to attack His Highness again, I will cut you in half even if I have to risk my life." Burn Cinder was forced to retreat by a demon. In the blink of an eye, a flame giant that was several meters tall appeared and sent the 2 demons flying into the ground. He took the opportunity to dodge. The dragon-slaying saber slashed out a slender beam of saber energy. Whoosh! A high-ranking demon was beheaded. Did you see that? This is your fate. Burn Cinder used the tip of his knife to point at the evil demon whose head had been cut off. He raised his head to look at Gerda Nazis and winked mischievously. A glint flashed in Gerda Nazis' eyes, but his emotions remained the same. He seemed to have fallen into despair and started to counterattack William. The intensity of a high-level battle was too great. The 2 of them fought again and again. Other than the sound of metal and stone colliding, there was only the sound of blood flowing into flesh. When the 2 advanced legendary bosses went all out, their auras increased. The shockwaves from every clash blew away the corpses within a radius of 100 meters. The ground also sank inch by inch. William was forced to retreat by a slash. As he flipped and retreated, he took out his legendary lightning bow for the first time. 9 thunder arrows instantly appeared in front of Gerda. Pom, pom, pom. The 3 fatal shots had become 9 consecutive shots. Gerda Nazis dodged 2 arrows and used his weapon to deflect another 2 arrows. The arrows behind pierced through his shield and hit his body. In the next moment, William traversed through space and appeared in front of him. At the same time, Gerda stabbed with his sword. Gerda also stabbed with his sword. The sword pierced into his abdomen. Both of them vomited blood and kicked out at the same time. They separated for a short while. Next, the two of them charged at each other again. But William activated Dawn Assault. He pushed against Gerda Nassi's body and transformed into a ray of blue light as he charged into the Devil's Den rumble. The dilapidated walls of the Devil's Den were smashed by the two of them. They only stopped when William knocked Gerda Nassi's into a large hole. That's it. Gerda Nassi's was covered in blood. He smiled bitterly as he walked out from the wall. His wounds were healing rapidly. This was the power of a devil. Yo, can you fight for an entire day? William panted. Gerda's recovery speed was almost as fast as his health points. William was so envious that he was drooling. It was a pity. He was too ugly. Being handsome was a lifetime thing. He could even make a living out of it. It was difficult for William to find an opportunity to deal a fatal blow. After all, as a legendary intelligent race, as long as they were not too stupid, they would not be considered weak if they could reach the advanced level. Their luck would not be too bad either. They would eventually find a way out of death. It's my turn now. Gerda laughed coldly. Was he forced to transform into a devil because he was forced by a devil? It was because of the devil's bloodline that he had greater power. He was already more than 2 meters tall, but in a short period of time, he grew bigger again. His iron-like biceps were almost as big as William's head. The long sword in his hand burned with black flames. He was extremely arrogant. I know how to transform too. William snapped his fingers, and the power of the Saint Spirit surged into his body at level 23. All his attributes increased by 23%. He had already used his battle energy to protect his body. The thunder battle energy surged again, and the electric arcs on the surface of his body multiplied. A faintly discernible Saint Spirit accompanied William by his side. That was right. The Saint Spirit had not appeared because he was unlucky. But after he activated the power of the Saint Spirit, he could summon it to help him block damage. He was no longer a level 70 advanced boss who had yet to level up his skills. He was now a mature, level 80 advanced legendary boss. The darkness invasion had lasted for a long time, and William did not know how many dark creatures he had killed. Furthermore, the players had been challenging the instance dungeons for the past 3 months, and he had gained a lot of experience points. Now he had an epic equipment set. His helmet, long sword, and bow were all legendary. Who was afraid of him? Gerda Nassi's did not waste any more words. He charged forward like a super muscular man. His black sword swept across tens of meters. Wherever the black light passed, the walls of the Devil's Den were cut as though they were made of tofu. William was fearless. He used his left arm to block the attack. Boom! The saber light, which was dozens of meters long, was crushed the moment he grabbed it with his left hand. Gerda Nassi's widened his eyes. What the heck? He wanted to ask if William's glowing left hand was a human hand. But just as William charged at Gerda, Burn Cinder appeared out of nowhere and shouted, "Prince William, I'll help you." Subsequently, a long and narrow red sword energy slashed at William's back. Gerda Nassi's could not help but clench his fists. He knew that William had blinked, but William tilted his body slightly, and the scorching sword energy slashed past his body. Swish! Gerda Nassi's, who was in a line, was slashed. A fountain of blood gushed out from his head to his chest, and then to the space between his legs. At this moment, Gerda Nassi's still had a pair of disbelieving eyes. He saw it. Augustine's smug smile, William's respectful gaze, and William's disdainful expression. Why? Buddy, there's no why. It's because you're the antagonist. William muttered in his heart. Do you really think that MOMO's magic is weak? Or do you really think that Augustine doesn't remember you? He remembers you, little brother. But in his heart, you're the person he hates the most. He raised his hand and slashed his sword. No matter how powerful his transformation was. But his physical injuries could not be compared to a dead heart. Gerda Nassi's. It was cold. Chapter 218. You have killed the level 93 legendary boss, Gerda Nassi's. You have obtained his warm corpse. The Dark Faction's affinity with you has decreased by 1,500 points. Your affinity with the Dark Faction is minus 21,000 points. You have obtained 1610500 experience points. You have obtained 2 random rewards. Do you want to draw? No, of course, William declined. It was not the time to check the rewards. He waved his hand and kept Gerdanasi's corpse. Then he brought his number 1 bootlicker, Burned Cinder, to other places to provide support. Actually, it was clear from the decreased affinity with the Dark faction. Gerdanasi's was not considered an important figure in the Dark world. He was just a pawn. Like Madrid, who was a traitor, he was just a guide. Moreover, the Dark faction's affinity with him had declined by so much. Why should he be afraid of a mere 1,500 points? There was no need to worry about too many debts, and there was no need to worry about lice when there were too many of them. His Royal Highness had an iron head, so he wasn't afraid of any revenge. When I saw Prince William beheading him, I felt as if the knot in my heart had been untied. That's awesome. Burned Cinder shook his head and excitedly waved his Dragon Slayer blade. He completely pierced through the walls that were about to collapse. William stood up and raised his eyebrows. He wanted to say, "You're awesome too. You killed your lover with a single slash. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to kill him. This is what it means to be successful and to be defeated." William rushed to the battlefield again. He sighed in his heart. Half of the credit for the rise of Gerdanasi's was due to Augustine, but his failure was also due to Augustine's early death. Now his death was due to Burned Cinder's fatal slash. But killing Gerdanasi's was far from the end of the war. There were at least a dozen advanced devils on the battlefield. A few wounded high-level abyss devils walked out of some of the remaining caves. But the cuts on their bodies were not caused by friendly forces. They were caused by passing through the unstable space tunnel. It could be said that, if they did not have strong recovery abilities, they would have died from excessive blood loss. It seemed like some devils were lucky enough to pass through the space tunnel, but most of the devils would have died in the tunnel. However, it was precisely because the space door between the Dark World and the Gods' Continent wasn't stable enough that many high-ranked demons didn't dare to take the risk. Although the reward for invading the Legends continent was great, the key problem was to have a life to claim it. At this moment, the grassland had completely turned into a battlefield of slaughter. Broken limbs, countless corpses, and a radius of 100 miles was a battlefield. The once tender green grass and wildflowers had already withered. Blood gathered into rivers and seeped into the earth. Perhaps it would become nutrients, or perhaps it would completely pollute a place full of vitality. The Rainbow River and the Rhine River also turned into red water, bringing along countless corpses as they flowed into the sea. It was like the Styx River that led to hell. The sky was as black as ink. In this dark battlefield, there was only a single ray of white light illuminating the land. Only that ray of light shrouded the entire battlefield from beginning to end, providing all the soldiers with sight and light. That was the City of Dawn. That was the City of Dawn that brought hope to the people. Xian was covered in blood. Her left wing had completely lost its luster, and blood had dyed most of it red. Or perhaps her left wing was completely severed. The 3 advanced devils surrounded her and attacked with all their might. They wanted to kill her as soon as possible. Xian's injuries worsened, but she persevered in the battle. There was only fighting spirit in her eyes. There was no despair. Angel, how could she feel despair in front of the devils? But just as the 3 epic devils were about to kill Shin, William descended from the sky, surrounded by lightning. Tens of lightning bolts descended from the clouds. 2 of the devils were struck by several lightning bolts. Their bodies were filled with electric currents, and their legs were stiff. They could not run, and they fell to the ground. "Get lost!" A devil with strong resistance roared. What a joke! William laughed loudly. He did not care about the sword energy that was slashing towards him. He pressed his left hand forward. Palm, 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 palm. The sword energy was crushed. The black epic longsword was crushed. When William grabbed the devil's right hand that was holding the sword, the same sword pierced through the devil's chin. The tip of the sword emerged from the top of the devil's head. William slowly pushed the epic devil's corpse away. He glanced at the little angel, who was kneeling on one knee in front of him. He asked, "Little angel, Are you proposing to me? Xian could not be bothered with him. Her wings were broken. What did it matter if she died? Here, you have strong combat power. You need to recover. William threw a small bottle to her. Xian opened the bottle cap. When she saw the 5 drops of life potion, her eyes widened. She clutched her chest and stood up with difficulty. You have so many of such precious things. Just drink it. I didn't poison it. William glanced at her. Did he put 2 drops of essence in it? Even if he wanted to trick her, he did not have the time. Moreover, he was still a child. The legendary battle angel did not stand on ceremony. She drank in one gulp. Not only did her broken wings regrow rapidly, but they also emitted holy light once again. It could be said that half of the winged race's combat power was related to their wings. After they became angels, their wings became even more important. It was extremely difficult to recover a broken wing. Besides the life potion, the winged race had other ways to recover. But Xian was kind enough to help. William had no reason to be stingy and only give her 3 drops. It was just enough for her to regrow her broken wings. If William generously gave her 5 drops, he would be able to increase her affinity. But at the same time, Annie rode on her unicorn and fought against 2 devils alone. She glanced at William, who had just finished flirting with the angel. Her eyes suddenly emitted blue light, like 2 dazzling blue moons. The 2 devils who were fighting against her sensed danger. It was a pity, but it was too late. A sword energy that looked like a full moon swept in all directions. In an instant, it had swept hundreds of meters away. From high up in the sky, it looked like a full moon that had exploded in the dark battlefield. Wherever the sword energy passed, 2 advanced devils and nearly 1,000 dark creatures were sliced in half. Gulp! When William saw this scene and the little princess's gaze, he could not help but swallow his saliva. She was so fierce. She was so flat. Why was her combat power so fierce? So be it. She could just be a little princess. With the rainbow pony, not to mention fighting, no one would be able to catch up to you if you ran. Why did she have to have such high killing power? I'm just trying to help my classmate. Why are you looking at me like that? William did not dare to stay any longer. He quickly rushed to the next battlefield that required help. Right now, the silver-backed monkeys were sweeping the dark creature's army. But in the advanced battles, they still had to win. Otherwise, there was a chance of failure. In just 10 seconds, William arrived at the next battlefield. It was an advanced legendary devil. He fought against Albert and Lautner alone. He used his own power to beat the 2 of them into a fluster. Their armor was broken. Move aside. I'll do it. William glanced at the 2 of them with a pained expression. Did their epic equipment not cost money? Wasn't it a sin to use epic equipment to fight against a legendary weapon? Let's do it. Lord of the City of Dawn, you'll definitely die today. The legendary devil laughed maniacally. The skin on his body instantly petrified. It was tough and flexible. William did not care. He slashed at the devil's left arm with all his might. But the sword could not penetrate more than 3 inches into the flesh. William was in disbelief. A black sword energy flashed. Palm! A golden holy spirit that looked like William rushed out of his body. It used the same weapon to shatter the black light and return to his body. William was not overjoyed. Instead, he slashed at the devil while he was in a daze. Crack! Like a bull, the devil used his ram horns to block the powerful legendary sword. His left hand was covered with black energy as he punched William's chest. Boom! William was sent flying into the air like a cannonball. The devil caught up with William at an even faster speed. A black sword energy that was tens of meters long slashed down. William used his left hand to block the attack. Crack, crack! The solid sword energy was grasped by William. William, who was in midair, stepped on the air and slowly moved forward. Explosions sounded continuously. The legendary devil glanced at William's left hand and slashed down again. Boom! The sword energy exploded. Shockwaves swept out in all directions. A human-shaped lightning shot out and slashed at the devil's head. Both of them crashed to the ground like meteors. Pom, pom, pom. The 2 of them created a trench that was tens of meters long on a grass plain. William's sword and the devil's sword were locked in a stalemate above the latter's head. Both of their arms were expanding, and their veins were bulging. In the next second, both of them kicked at the same time. The two people who were bounced off crashed into each other at an even faster speed. Palm, palm, palm. The speed at which they collided increased, and the speed at which they swung their weapons became fiercer. This was not a battle between swords and knives. It was a battle of pure combat techniques. Swish, swish, swish. William slashed 3 times. The sword energy slid across the devil's body. It did not cause him much damage, but cut off his tail. The legendary devil was enraged. The ranger's close combat ability was beyond his imagination. The toughness of the ranger's skin was comparable to his. Naturally, the devil was furious. If you don't shoot arrows obediently, I'll teach you how to be an elf. I'm a half-elf. Cut the crap. William was not to be outdone. He grabbed the sword with his left hand and pulled it back when the sword was about to stab at him again. Puffed. The sword energy entered his body and came out from his back. But the devil did not care about the injury on his abdomen. He slammed his head against William's palm. Both of them looked up at the same time. They felt dizzy. William wanted to take off his legendary helmet and rub his forehead. It was so painful that he was about to cry. His nose bridge was about to be smashed. Moreover, he had heard the sound of the legendary helmet cracking. The devil was in even more pain. He was a devil. He was born with an iron head and horns. But his head was also so hard. It did not make sense. Both of them took a short break during the continuous battle. The main reason was it was a headache. When 2 iron-headed dolls collided, one of them would definitely be injured. But when 2 iron-headed dolls of the same level collided, they could only rub their heads to relieve the headache. But in this battle, rubbing one's head would be a disgrace to the legendary. But in the next moment, the legendary devil suddenly lowered his head. But it was too late. A blue sword energy swept past. He could only cover his bleeding neck. But he could not hold on to his severed head. No matter how fast the devil's recovery speed was, he could not quickly reattach his severed head. Behind him, Annie glanced at William. She sheathed her moonlight longsword and rode away on her rainbow pony. She disappeared from sight once again. William was dumbfounded. After a while, he silently put away the devil's corpse. It was shameful to waste. He could not learn from the rich lady. But he also understood Annie's gaze. She seemed to be saying to herself, "Who is the boss? I'm the boss." Oh, that should be what she meant. Chapter 219. On the battlefield that was like a meat grinder, there were only a dozen advanced devils. The little princess, who had once seemed extremely quiet, had killed 5 people in a short period of time in her explosive state. She's going to become a god soon. Who can afford to offend her? William complained and rushed to the other battlefields. Most of the advanced legendary devils had strong bloodlines, but they only had 2 legendary devils. If one of them died, the other one would not be able to survive alone. The darkness invasion was getting closer and closer to failure. The remaining 6 to 7 devils were surrounded by many advanced professionals. No matter how strong their physiques were, even if their biceps were big, round, and firm, they could not withstand such explosive firepower. A giant berserk ape that was only 6 meters tall also stood out on the battlefield, because this little guy's combat power seemed to be fiercer and fiercer than Bruce. No one knew what was going on. It was holding a 2-meter mace that it had snatched from a troll. It chased after an advanced devil and gave it a beating. The devil did not even have the strength to retaliate. How is this possible? A 6-meter-tall giant ape seems to be a beginner magical beast. This doesn't make sense. William could not help but use his insight. Gosh! He inhaled a breath of cold air. It was Serimus, this great druid, who had focused on making potions and had never fought, had actually transformed into a Grandmaster silver-backed ape. Although he was smaller in size, his body was more agile. He did not charge around like the giant ape. Instead, he used his smaller size to attack the devils. He's already a Grandmaster druid, but he's still doing sneak attacks. He's too shameless. The corners of William's mouth twitched. The druid occupation was very interesting. For a beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels, they could only choose one magical beast that they could transform into. A Grandmaster could transform into 2 magical beasts, 3 epic beasts, and 5 legendary beasts. But after they chose the magical beast, they could not change it again. That was why druids often treasured their transformation slots, especially when it was their first time transforming into a magical beast. There were many requirements. It was impossible for them to transform into a giant dragon at a beginner level. Serene was a Grandmaster level druid. He should have chosen a magic beast before. Now that he saw the power of the silverback ape, he decided to give his precious second transformation position to the silverback ape. Is this why he is willing to help the City of Dawn? William pondered for a while. This was a possibility. During the 7 days of defending the City of Dawn, William had not participated in any battles. Perhaps it was because the City of Dawn was not in a desperate situation, or perhaps there were people who did not allow him to take action. They only allowed him to use his potion-making abilities. But more importantly, the appearance of the silver-backed ape had benefited Serene. That was why he was willing to help the City of Dawn. After all, he was still hiding his true combat strength. Otherwise, that high-rank demon would have long been smashed into meat paste. Who cares what schemes he has up his sleeves? A Grandmaster Apothecary is more important than a druid. Someone wanted to make use of William. But how could William not want to make use of them? If the City of Dawn didn't have this pharmaceutics Grandmaster, the marsh flowers wouldn't have been able to help his subordinates reach the advanced level. Therefore, it didn't matter who sent Serene. It was enough for everyone to use each other. After that, William dashed towards the besieged devils. He no longer hid his strength and attacked with all his might. When an advanced epic devil saw the Lord of the City of Dawn charging towards him, he was fearful. But the most infuriating thing was the elf in front of him had pointed his middle finger at him with his left hand. This is infuriating. I'm risking my life to bring him along. Before he could finish his sentence, a bolt of lightning instantly reached his chest. The devil used his arm to block the dazzling light in front of him. He activated the protective shield on the surface of his body. But the finger of Thunder God pierced through the protective shield and penetrated his chest. It exploded on his back, forming a huge electric arc that spread in all directions. Prince William is very powerful. I'm impressed. Lancelot didn't lead the Temple Knights in the charge. Instead, he rode the Pegasus and came here. After he finished speaking to William, he leaped from the Pegasus and slashed out a sword energy that emitted holy light. But that was not all. The holy sword instantly transformed into hundreds of small swords of light and shot towards the demons that were besieged. Rumble. Waves of shockwaves spread from the center of the explosion. When the smoke and dust dissipated, one devil died on the spot. The remaining 3 devils were covered in wounds. Many of their wounds were stained with holy light, and their recovery speed was greatly reduced. When an advanced epic devil saw the advanced professional surrounding him again, he couldn't help but roar. "Are you really going to kill us all?" Albert, the muscular elf, raised his eyebrows. "Are we going to let you have babies and sell them for money?" The devils were speechless. Lautner spat out a mouthful of blood. He pulled his longbow into a crescent shape and was ready to shoot a fatal arrow at any time. Meanwhile, the advanced battlefield in the Black Lava Dukedom was about to end. After war leader Diablo became an advanced professional, he was a true metal warrior. When he brandished his spear, thousands of weapons on the battlefield moved along with his spear. His spear pointed. Thousands of swords and knives gathered together and pierced through the air. Within a few breaths, he used countless swords and knives to stab the last devil into meat paste. Not even a complete corpse was left behind. That's too much. I wanted to collect the corpses. William shook his head. So many swords and knives were gathered together, but they were all destroyed. Diablo doesn't cherish his spoils of war. Lautner nodded in understanding. A group of advanced professionals were chatting with confidence, but the 3 devils in the middle could not help but feel a chill. It was too cruel. Killing was just a matter of nodding one's head. We demons can also be buried after we die. But why didn't they keep the corpses? No. Why did they collect our corpses? While they were hot. Gosh, they were perverted and evil. The three advanced devils trembled as they hugged each other. Adjective. Fortunately, the advanced epic rank devil was not afraid. He said fiercely, "The darkness invasion this time is don't talk nonsense. Are you going to say that the devils will take revenge on me?" William narrowed his eyes. This fool dared to say anything. If this information was leaked, even if he returned to the dark world, the Devil Lord would not let him off. The devil looked at William's expression and realized that he had said something wrong. He said, "Let us go. Otherwise, the darkness invasion will start again. The dark army will not stop. Even if you kill us, it's useless." He wanted to find an excuse to return alive. What about the remaining hundreds of thousands of dark creatures? There were plenty of them in the dark world. So what if they died? But in this situation, it was not up to William to decide if he would let the devil live. When all the advanced professionals unleashed their full power, a dazzling white light shone from the center of the grass plain. The dark clouds above their heads were torn apart. The sun that had not appeared for a long time appeared in the sky again. The darkness invasion in the southeast had ended within 7 days. However, the remaining hundreds of thousands of dark creatures also fled in all directions, disappearing into the vast plains and forests. War. It had not stopped, but the light of hope had illuminated their world. Chapter 220. After the war, 1/3 of the dark creatures of the million-strong dark army fled in all directions. They were scattered throughout the massacre plains, Blackleaf Forest, and Black Lava Dukedom. The warriors who had fought for 7 days and 7 nights did not have the mood to chase after the dark creatures. They were too tired. After the war ended, they could just lie on the pile of corpses and fall asleep. That was because there were too many people who had killed their way to this point with just one breath. Now that the crisis was completely gone, the thing that many people were most worried about could also be put down. It was not impossible to sleep to death. Moreover, if the advanced devils had not perished in the final battle, the Alliance's army would have been wiped out. The dark creatures would only become a mass of loose sand if they lost the overseer of the demons. William and Lancelot stood in the distance and looked at the collapsing devil's dens. Loud rumbling sounds were heard continuously. Both of them were filled with emotions. The war was only over when all the devil's dens had disappeared. The collapse of the devil's dens was caused by the Temple Knights who were destroying the teleportation portal in the devil's den. Lancelot knew that if he left the army early, it would definitely cause some trouble. Therefore, he had to command the Temple Knights to help to the end before the temple messenger arrived. After all, he had placed the transmission scroll in the space ring. Only God knew how much information would pop out if he took it out. If not, a certain person's image would pop out and curse at him. "You're leaving?" William looked at his old friend. Lancelot sighed. "Yes, I'm leaving. If everything goes according to plan, the messenger will arrive soon." Being in the light, it's the mission of the Temple Knights to fight against the dark creatures. But I violated the temple's order and led the army to war. I even killed 431 Temple Knights. Although the battle results are great, the higher-ups of the temple may not think that this is a battle result. I don't think many of the veteran Temple Knights will continue to support me. It cannot be helped. All the members of the Sword Saint Knights were second-generation Temple Knights. Many of the members' parents were higher-ups of the Temple of Light. With so many dead members, he was under great pressure. The veteran Temple Knights who had lost their children would not let the matter rest. Lancelot did not say much. He was here to repay a debt of gratitude, not to complain. Since he could control the Sword Saint squad, he naturally had his own abilities and trump cards. As for the agreement between the Dark World and the top experts of the continent, Lancelot did not know. He was just a commander of an army, not a corps member. But he understood one thing. The Brilliance Divine Hall would definitely be involved, because the invasion of the Dark World would not be able to bypass the Temple of Light. Everyone knew that many humans were traitors, but there was no reason that demons did not have traitors. Since the Divine Hall knew that the Dark World was going to invade, not only did they not take action, but they also asked them to prepare for a month before taking action. This meant that the two sides must have reached some kind of agreement. William seemed to know what he was thinking. He smiled and said, "The decision of a top expert is not something we can participate in. But in this life-threatening situation, we can't just not ask for help." The next moment, a ray of white light appeared in the distant sky, and a series of explosions formed a chain behind him. His speed was so fast that it was hard to imagine, and this was not even his fastest speed. As the thunderous roars continued to enter everyone's ears, an indescribable pressure made everyone on the battlefield feel suffocated. They even felt as if they had to crawl on the ground to survive. But they had fought for a long time. They were not pushovers. The aura alone was not enough to make them kneel. The white light did not stop. It descended from the sky and landed heavily in front of William and Lancelot. Bang! A deafening sound was heard. It was as if a huge meteorite had landed on the surface of a planet. The tremors spread in all directions, and the shock waves rolled endlessly. Just as the shock waves were about to spread into the distance with a soft sigh, the shock waves dissipated like bubbles, and the misty smoke also turned into dust. Lancelot immediately knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "Greetings, Lord Messenger of the Southern Region. Greetings, Lord Messenger of the Southern Region." When the other Temple Knights heard this, they all knelt on one knee and looked at that person with admiration. The middle-aged man glanced at the battlefield around him and the warriors who were glaring at him with rage in their eyes. He was too embarrassed to continue releasing his aura. The corners of William's mouth twitched when he saw this person. He did not expect such a powerful boss to appear, but he did not dare to act recklessly. He slowly lowered his head and excitedly said, "The City of Dawn, follow me to greet the Guardian of the Southern Region." William's voice reverberated for a radius of 100 miles. His happy tone did not seem fake. All the warriors, or rather, all the races who heard William's words woke up from their slumber. They stood up and lowered their heads. Some even knelt on the ground and looked at the man with respect. At the same time, they shouted, "Greetings, Guardian of the Southern Region. Greetings, Guardian of the Southern Region. Greetings, Guardian of the Southern Region. All of you get up." The man, who was dressed in ordinary black clothes, raised his eyebrows. He muttered to himself, "Guardian of the Southern Region? Gosh, whose elfin child was this? How dare he make fun of him?" The Southern Region was a huge place, and he was called the Guardian of the Southern Region. How could he defend it? He was the commander of the Temple of the Southern Region. But such a big hat has been put on my head, it's better to accept it. After all, the title of Guardian of the Southern Region sounded very domineering. In the future, when he met other old fellows, he could brag about it. Hence, the middle-aged man, who had reached the legendary realm, coughed lightly and said, "There's no need to destroy the devil's dens. Leave some of them for training. As for the rest, you can leave. The darkness invasion, you guys fought well. Roar. That's great. I knew it. I knew that someone would be watching us walk towards victory. He wouldn't let us die. Guardian of the Southern Region? I've never heard of him, but his suffocating aura is really powerful. I thought he was a bad guy. Turns out he's a good guy." The professionals of the Massacre Plains raised their heads and discussed among themselves. The players were shocked. Gosh, this was a living legendary boss. He was a Temple Knight who had the title of legendary. Lancelot could see the awkwardness in the messenger's expression. He was about to say something when William stepped forward and cried, "Guardian, the greatest, most powerful, most heroic, and most selfless Guardian of the Southern Region. You have finally come. You have finally come to save us. The moment you arrived, we won the Darkness Invasion. You are the hero who defeated the Darkness Invasion." The mouth of the Southern Region Oracle twitched. What the hell? I haven't even done anything, and I've become the hero who defeated the Darkness Invasion? I don't want to be the scapegoat. But William took a few steps forward and prostrated before the Oracle's knees. He tightly hugged the Oracle's thigh and shook it. He sobbed and said, "My lord, ever since the Darkness Invasion, the City of Dawn has suffered countless casualties. Many people fought with injuries. Some even dragged their crippled arms and legs to fight with their lives on the line. It's not easy for us. Look at the warriors who fell asleep while lying on the corpses. Look at the warriors who didn't let go of their weapons even when they died. Look at them, they are your believers. They are the people that you are protecting. What the heck? Do I have so many believers? Why don't I know? Why do I need believers? They are the believers of the God of light. If I remember correctly, the number of light believers in this godforsaken place in the southeast is only a few tens of thousands, right? The oracle of the southern region broke down again. He cursed in his heart. Who is this half-elf kid? He glanced at the city of dawn and pondered. Then, he looked deeply at William. His heart skipped a beat. Are the Blackleaf elves of the royal bloodline so shameless? No, it's not the Blackleaf elves who are shameless. It's that shameless old man. The middle-aged man thought of something, and his face darkened. But why? Don't want to have a good impression of him? No, I can't control myself. Prompt. Roland Fecker's affinity for you has increased by 80 points. William did not say anything. Roland's expression gradually became gentler. Furthermore, he had been flattered, and hundreds of thousands of people were watching. He could not do anything too intense. So he took a deep breath and extended his palm toward the sky. He gently clenched his fist. The sky changed color. Countless light rain descended from the sky. All the soldiers who were still alive on the battlefield could feel the strong aura of life. Their injuries were all recovering at an extremely fast rate. Even some of the disabled professions, although they didn't regrow, their wounds were itching and recovering at an extremely fast rate. Everyone was cheering for the greatness of the Guardian of the Southern Region. But no one saw that the Guardian of the Southern Region's face had turned black. But who was William? He was the elf prince who was loved by everyone and was loved by flowers. He was a popular NPC who had the endowment of good looks. He immediately knelt down on one knee and presented a small bottle in front of him with both hands. Roland released his palm and let out a deep breath. Although he had a good impression of William, he had suffered a great loss. If he had known, he would not have sent a messenger. He would not have come to punish those be***** stars. But the moment he opened the bottle, he immediately covered it. Prompt. Roland Fecker's affinity for you has increased by 270 points. Prompt. Roland Fecker's affinity for you has increased by 130 points. Prompt. Roland Fecker's affinity for you has increased by 480 points. A total of 300 drops of life potion. And it's the life potion from the world tree? Even though Roland was a super powerhouse in the legendary realm, he still felt an indescribable shock in the face of 300 drops of life water. It did not mean that there was no other life potion other than the life potion from the world tree. But the life potion from the world tree had a chance of resurrection. There was no other life potion in the God's continent, especially the life potion from other plants or creatures. The quality of the life potion was different, and he was not interested in it. At this moment, Roland finally looked at the half-elven child William seriously. He wanted to know how much the Blackleaf elves had invested in him. He also wanted to know how much shamelessness William had inherited from his father. 300 drops of life potion. For a moment, his resentment for being cheated had disappeared. His attitude of denouncing William had also disappeared. As for the agreement regarding the darkness invasion, what was that? Wasn't that a verbal agreement? Roland had earned a lot. What was the point of denouncing William? You lost with so many Temple Knights? Oh, so it's the fault of only 3,000 Templars? They were just passing by. Very good, very good. Young lad, you have a bright future. I have high hopes for you. Roland silently kept the small bottle into his space ring and helped William up. When Lancelot saw this scene, his eyes widened, and they almost popped out. The other players and NPCs were the same. Gosh, legendary. Legends were different from each other. Yours was just bloodline potential. That was a true legend. William was personally helped up by a veteran. For a moment, countless players fell silent. They were wondering how good William's networking skills were. William wiped his tears and said, "My lord is kind and helped us resolve the darkness invasion. I, William Blackleaf, will never forget this. Please don't punish Lancelot for helping me. If you really want to punish him, why don't you punish me first?" William knelt on the ground again. Roland's mouth twitched. He did not say that he would punish William. But the others did not know that a group of temple knights shouted, "We came here on our own accord. Please let the team leader go." The professionals of the City of Dawn quickly shouted, "Let Prince William go. If you want to punish someone, punish us." Beep, beep, beep. In a few seconds, many professionals told them about William's life story and all kinds of good deeds. The legendary expert with strong hearing fell into deep thought. He helped William up again and held his hand tightly so that William could not kneel down again. He whispered to William, "Don't be silly. It's okay to break the rules, but you have to be capable. If you did not use anything that exceeded the limits of the rules, you will win this war." Lancelot did a great service, not a mistake. No, no. It was Lord William who led us to victory and exterminated the dark creatures. William shook his head. He did not want to be the scapegoat. Roland was too lazy to argue with William. It was just a scapegoat. William's scapegoat was big and round, and there were many layers of it. Why would he be afraid of such a small scapegoat? But he could not be bothered to stay here. Although the scapegoat was small, the quantity could overwhelm the quality. He looked around. TSK, TSK. The southeastern corner was quite interesting. Humans, elves, Serafkin, half-elves, orcs, and other magical beasts had joined forces. It was incredible, but the real human experts had considered this. If there was a very influential professional who joined forces with all the powerful beings, they might be able to defeat the darkness invasion. It could even be said that if the various forces joined forces to resist the darkness invasion, they would have a 50% chance of winning. But the hope was too small, and no top human experts would consider it seriously. So they wanted to end the darkness invasion a month later. At the same time, they wanted the major races to face the darkness invasion as soon as possible. But in the southeastern corner of the legendary continent, although the Temple Knights had participated in the counterattack, they did not violate too many rules. In particular, this sudden win rate was far from being as heavy of a punishment as imagined. In fact, it was even more surprising. So this war, the winner would be rewarded. The winner would be glorious. The winner should be victorious. Chapter 221. Roland was the chief commander of the Temple of Light in the southern region. He had the authority to command all the temples in the southern region. In other words, all the Temple of Light, oracles, temple knights, and priests in the southern region were his subordinates. He even had the authority to command the temple knights from the center of the continent. Darkness invaded the 9 continents. It was not that no one was paying attention. In fact, there were too many people. The southeastern corner was a relatively remote place. It was not even comparable to some small places in the legendary continent. But Lancelot had suddenly led a legion to participate in the war. He had completely ignored the warning message from the magic transmission scroll. This situation could not be hidden from the higher-ups of the Temple of Light in the southern region. But the most interesting thing was that the southeastern corner was not ordinary. The Black Lava Nation had built 5 defensive fortresses to defend against the City of Dawn. But everyone knew that the neutral lord would not dare to send troops to attack a human nation. The construction of the 5 fortresses did not seem to be able to defend against the attacks of intelligent creatures. The City of Dawn was even more interesting. There were many defensive measures. There were various trump cards. Some of the young fellows who had attained the advanced level in a short period of time also displayed extraordinary talents and combat power. This situation was observed by all the powerful forces. The decisive battle of the counterattack began. The silver-backed apes appeared out of nowhere. The orcs, Black Lava Nation, and all the forces in the southeastern corner counterattacked at the same time. Even the Temple Knights appeared. The Temple Observer could not help but report the news to the higher-ups. Then, the news was passed to the higher-ups. In addition, Lancelot had violated the rules and led troops to help. This attracted the attention of the leader of the Temple of Light, Roland Fecker. He was the chief commander of the Temple of Light in the southern region, but he did not come to the southern region to play. Of course, the Temple of Light was not the only one who had achieved victory in the southeastern corner. All the powerful forces had also noticed it. However, even if people from other forces came, they would hide well and not be discovered at all. They would not be like Roland. He came so openly, as if he was afraid that others would not know that he had come. Of course, there was a key point. Lancelot had led the Temple Knights to join the battle. This was also an important reason why Roland had to come openly. Roland believed that they should have won this battle, but Lancelot's actions had indeed violated the orders of the Divine Temple. He also needed to be punished. So, Roland demoted him to the commander of the temple in the southeast region. Although Lancelot seemed to have left the center of power of the temple and distanced himself from his many knight brothers, but at the same time, he also left the intrigue of the core of the temple. Furthermore, if he was not wrong, the temple knights that followed him would slowly return to him. William took a deep look at Roland. He was curious about Lancelot's background. This guy clearly told her that he was from the northeast. You're a big boss of the southern region. You're taking care of him like this? What? Roland, your surname isn't Fick, but Old Wong for next door? Especially when a large group of second-generation temple knights followed Lancelot. It was impossible for them to do so without their parents' permission. But who was he? In William's previous life, he had not figured out Lancelot's true identity. But he knew this brother had always been taken care of. Compared to him, the protagonist of the version was adopted. This would not be the only time the darkness invasion occurred. The legendary continent was huge. Wherever there was darkness, Lancelot would shine. His deeds were spread throughout the continent. Only William experienced the last version. He died a tragic death. Very tragic. The Devil Lord was dismembered, and his soul was imprisoned in the Styx River. Not only did he have to endure the torture of being bitten by the undead, but he also had to resist the corrosion of the darkness. It was a pity. Lancelot did not survive, but William did not. He died in the gaming capsule. Hence, William did not know if Lancelot had been revived. In the end, Lancelot became the rebel boss and the light boss. Roland gave some instructions and did not waste any more time. He took a deep look at William, turned his head, and flew to the depths of the continent. After all, he knew that the Alliance's counterattack had been coordinated by William. But even if he was unhappy, he did not feel that it was appropriate to deal with William, because William's face was covered in blood, and his armor was full of cracks. William looked at Roland with admiration. Roland could not bear to bully him. D*MN. I'm such a failure as the guardian of the southern region. Roland cursed in the sky. Then, he transformed into a bolt of lightning and disappeared into the horizon. Until now, Lancelot was still in a daze. Was the punishment over? Had he become the commander of the southeastern region? Had he been demoted? Or had he been demoted? But no matter what, he had escaped a calamity. After the uncles and aunties had calmed down, he would be able to lead the temple knights to wander around. But why did Roland talk so much to William? Why did he treat William indifferently? I'm a temple knight, all right? After William saw Roland disappear, he sat on the ground and took a deep breath. That was a close call, but in fact, it was not that dangerous. William knew that he had led the southeastern region to become the first victor of the darkness invasion. 1 month later, he would be the only victor of the 9 continents. The higher-ups of the legendary continent would definitely send someone to investigate. William was not afraid, because it wasn't that there was no one in the family. He still had a bit of a background. He had even considered that no matter how powerful the invader was, he would at most be an epic-titled professional. A true legendary expert would not have the time or be too lazy to deal with him. But who would have thought that the shameless Roland Fecker would come? If it was an ordinary epic expert, William would be too lazy to be a bootlicker. If someone really came, he would use his trump card. Even if he could not scare Roland to death, he would still have the help of the epic expert. At least, he would not be blackmailed. But everything was beyond William's imagination. The invader was too fast. So fast that the war had not ended. Especially when the invader was Roland. This old man was as shameless as William, but he was not a bad person. At least, he had never betrayed the light. At least, he had never been indifferent to living beings. At least, he had used his life to protect the southern region. So, what was wrong with being a guardian? William was right, but he had said it too early. What's wrong? You can't do it after Lord Oracle left? Lancelot glanced at him. William wanted to say, "How can a man say that he can't do it?" But he could not be bothered. William lay on the barren ground and slowly closed his eyes. He just wanted to sleep. He wanted to have a good sleep. He used the life potion to recover his energy. It was too extravagant. He was too stubborn. At this moment, most of the advanced professionals who had participated in the war could not help but lie on the ground and look up at the blue and white sky. They fell into a deep sleep in the embrace of the sun. The war had not ended, because the War of the Fourth Era had just begun. Chapter 222. When a most intense war ended. The Devil's Den would not be opened on a large scale in one go, but in the future, it would open frequently. The City of Dawn would have to face endless searches and expeditions. It would also have to solve a series of problems to prevent the infiltration of the dark forces. From then on, the devils that had disappeared for thousands of years returned to this land. The creatures and monsters and myths and legends would be unveiled one by one, appearing before the eyes of the world once again. Prompt: the S-level main mission, Darkness Invasion, has been completed. Prompt: the southeastern region is victorious. Prompt: the completion rate is 69%. Prompt: your subordinates have obtained 31% contribution points. Prompt: you have obtained 640,000 experience points. Prompt: you have obtained the legendary item, Darkness Raw Stone. Prompt: you have obtained the legendary item, Purified Blood Essence of the Devil Lord. Prompt: you have obtained the reward, Recognition from the continent. The 6 for million experience points was not a big deal. It was not enough for him to upgrade both of his skills to level 23. But William could not help but widen his eyes when he saw the two legendary items. Fantasy Devil's Raw Stone, Premium. Quality, Legendary. Materials, Unknown. Function: you can disguise yourself as any devil of the same level and possess the aura of the devil. Limitation: you can only use the Darkness Raw Stone once every 3 hours. Limitation: each transformation can last for 30 hours. Limitation: you cannot transform into a devil that is 5 times larger or smaller than your own body size. Friendly prompt: after seeing the Fantasy Devil's Raw Stone, are you tempted to explore the dark world? William glanced at the mainframe. The Fantasy Devil's Raw Stone was a good item, especially with the word premium behind its name. It meant that the Fantasy Devil's Raw Stone was one of the best among the legendary items. For example, the Thunder Ring, Thunder God Ring. What did it mean? It meant that the ring had been worn by the Thunder God. It was unique, especially with the word damage on the quality. It meant that the ring could be improved. The Fantasy Devil's Raw Stone was not unique, but it was extremely rare among the Fantasy Devil's Raw Stones. William's sword, bow, and helmet were all legendary equipment, but their value was far less than the Fantasy Devil's Raw Stone and Thunder God Ring. In particular, the effect of the Fantasy Fiend Raw Stone could even save his life at some critical moments. For example, the Dark Faction would send a large number of devils to seek revenge on him. After William was forced into a corner, he could disguise himself as a devil and blend in with them. The higher the quality of the Fantasy Devil's Raw Gemstone, the lower the chances of being discovered. However, he did not want to court death by going to the Dark World, because the Dark World was full of violence and blood. Even if he became a higher demon, he might not be safe. Just by looking at the Darkness Invasion, one could understand that the evil demons were the most powerful race in the Dark World. But in the eyes of demon overlords and dark sovereigns, high-level demons were nothing more than cannon fodder. That's right, I'll keep this for now, but I'm definitely not going to the Dark World. His Royal Highness considered himself a man who cherished his life. He would never court death, not in this lifetime. With a flip of his hand, he tossed the Dream Demon into the space ring and began to check the next reward. Purified Blood of a Demon Lord quality. Legendary quantity. 10 drops effect. Increases the bloodline potential of dark creatures and the potential of darkness-type professionals. Friendly reminder: a domestic devil is waving at you. Catch one and give it a try? William's brain had criticized him. This item was very useful. The Temple of Light and the Palace of Darkness were collecting this item at a high price. In his previous life, He had seen it at an auction. In the end, a Temple Knight player had bought it and handed it over to the Temple of Light. He had obtained a lot of affinity points and contribution points, especially the purified blood. Not only was it a treasure full of temptation to the devils, but it was also the same for the darkness-type practitioners. But this item had a few side effects. He had heard that after darkness-type professionals consumed the blood, they would completely sink into darkness and rely on darkness. For example, how did Gurdanasis become a devil? He must have consumed the unpurified blood of a demon lord. That was why he became like that. But no matter how purified the blood of a demon lord was, it still contained a trace of the nature of a devil. Most darkness-type NPCs were unable to resist the temptation and would sink deeper and deeper into darkness. The rewards of the main plot mission are quite generous, but I haven't received the rewards yet. Forget about Eric and Alec. Their bloodlines are already epic, so there's no need to take the risk. I'll keep the blood for now. When the time comes, no matter which faction I give it to, I'll be able to obtain an explosive amount of affinity points. William muttered to himself. The demon lord was not a cabbage. It was on the same level as the human legendary professionals. Its power was unfathomable. After the Temple of Light obtained the blood of the demon lord, they could find some weaknesses of the devils. Otherwise, they were both light-type professionals. Why were the Temple Knights and Priests Holy Light so powerful? It was just a slight change from Light Element to Holy Light, but it was definitely a qualitative change. As for the reward that is yet to arrive, it should be given to me by a messenger a month later. I just don't know what it is. William pondered for a while. The Darkness Invasion lasted for a month. During this period, the continent's experts chose to tacitly agree and ignore it. 1 month later, the losses after the Darkness Invasion were calculated. If there was no butterfly effect, the Darkness Invasion in other places would end with the Light faction's defeat. Then, the victory in the southeastern corner of the legendary continent would be widely spread. The City of Dawn would become the super spokesperson for the fight against the darkness. Humans are afraid of being famous, but in this great era, no one will know if I'm hiding. William was not afraid of being famous. The more famous he was, the less people would dare to touch him. In fact, there was such an idea in his plan, because no matter how the gods' continent waged war, but in the face of the Darkness Invasion, even if they were full of schemes, they would still choose to cooperate. And when they thought of the Darkness Invasion, they could not help but think of William. William, the Lord of the City of Dawn, was the only victor of the initial Darkness Invasion. The only one. The only one. Think about it. In the future, if anyone dared to touch him, they would have to think about his fame and attention. He would be the vanguard of the fight against the Darkness Invasion. He would be the hero of the fight against the Darkness Invasion. In the eyes of the experts, he was the pride of this era. He had a mysterious father, and his mother was the princess of the Elven royal family. She was the moonlight elven princess of the City of Dawn. If there were no accidents, people would gradually discover his identity and spread it. When that moment came, the many power struggles in the City of Dawn were enough to make people flinch at the sight of it. As for William, he could wear this golden armor and lead his subordinates and players to wander around. No matter how many versions of the game changed, as long as he could use the memories of his previous life to gain the upper hand and make himself more famous. The restrictions of a neutral lord did not matter to him. What is a legend? This is my path to becoming a legend. Why do some people not get the title of legend even after reaching the ultimate realm? It's because they don't have dazzling achievements and fame. But I'm different. My journey to becoming a legend has already begun. There are many more stories to be told. William had a sweet dream for a while. Suddenly, he remembered that he had many random rewards that he had yet to draw. He happily started to draw the lottery. Touching the princess? Touching the rainbow pony? Bah! He did not believe in heresy anymore. He had won with numbers. Chapter 2:23. In the entire Darkness Invasion, there were no random draw rewards for killing the beginner and intermediate epic and legendary bosses. But when killing an advanced epic and legendary boss, besides the experience points and warm corpses, there was a possibility of a random draw reward. As an outstanding lord, William could not help but feel proud. He was no longer a lowly NPC. The equipment on the warm corpses was nothing to him. He did not even care if the corpses could be turned into materials. Because he was not a player, he did not need the equipment that players needed. Even the seemingly expensive epic weapon was nothing in front of him. Even if an epic longsword suddenly appeared at his feet, William would not bend down to pick it up. It was because the 3 seconds were enough for him to kill a boss and obtain more loot. Ahem, it had nothing to do with his luck points. Regardless of whether he had encountered it or not, he would definitely not pick it up. Epic Draw X6, Legendary Draw X3, a total of 9 draws. There were 3 advanced legendary bosses in the Darkness Invasion, including Gurdanasis. Because they would drop loot after killing them, the random draw probability could be odd, even or not. This was also the reason why William had 3 chances to draw after killing 2 legendaries. William had not left the battlefield. After a nap, most of the people had left. Only a few professionals were still cleaning up the battlefield. William returned home and took a bath. He got rid of the dirt on his body and changed into a new set of clothes. Then, he smashed a statue of the goddess of luck angrily before starting the draw. As the saying goes, if you are heartless to me, don't blame me for being heartless. I'm going to fight fire with fire. William kicked away the fragments of the goddess of luck statue. He mysteriously took out the statue of the goddess of misfortune and bowed deeply. Then, he started drawing from the epic reward. Beep. You have randomly drawn 5 points of power attribute. Increased. Beep. You have randomly drawn forever taking off underwear. William's fingers trembled slightly, but he did not stop. Beep. You have randomly drawn 10 points of agility and power attribute. Increased. What was this? Was the misfortune so real? William's eyes turned red, and he continued to draw. Beep. You have randomly drawn private treasury, 600 dark magic crystals. Beep. You have randomly drawn cursed all. Beep. You have randomly drawn the chain of consciousness skill. F***CK. When William saw the last 2 items, he was stunned for a long time before he cursed. Do you have to be so powerful? How do I draw the legendary reward? The prince was feeling a little weak now. The high-tier legendary item, the cursed all, and the super rare chain of consciousness skill had almost made him a fortune. But he still had 3 legendary rewards to draw. William did not dare to hesitate. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that he was lucky and draw 3 consecutive times. Beep. You have randomly drawn Gerda Nasi skill. Beep. Gerda song score. Beep. You have randomly drawn the talent Advance Hardened Skin. Wong Defa. William clutched his chest and looked in disbelief at the remaining 3 rewards. Not to mention the mysterious epic quality map. He didn't even care about Gerda Nasi's lousy song score. Chain. William of skills. Legendary boss. Of a boss of a monster. Wolf was have William. My God, it's advanced toughened skin. It's a godly endowment. I've finally become tankier. William hurriedly glanced at his luck points. Had his luck points increased after he worshipped the goddess of misfortune? Luck, 500 points, temporary. Gosh. William was about to go crazy with joy. Beep. Prompt. The goddess of misfortune has cursed you. Your luck will be reduced by 99% for 3 months. Prompt. The goddess of misfortune has cursed you. Your luck will be reduced by 99% for 1 year. Prompt. The goddess of misfortune has cursed you. Your luck will be reduced by 99% for 2 years after a long while. The goddess of misfortune was no longer cursing him. Luck. 1, 2 years. William glanced at the information panel guiltily. The corners of his mouth twitched. What was going on? Had he tricked the goddess of misfortune? She had cursed him 3 times in a row. She seemed to be angry. He vaguely remembered that after worshipping the goddess of misfortune, the NPCs could temporarily increase their luck. Of course, there was a certain probability of this happening. But if the goddess of misfortune sensed the prayers, she would temporarily increase one's luck. The duration might be a few seconds or a few days. It all depended on the mood of the goddess of misfortune. Then, the goddess of misfortune would take away all the luck of the NPCs for up to a year. During this period, no matter how high the NPC's luck was, it would be reduced to 1. But the goddess of misfortune had been tricked. Was there a difference between 1 and 3? All right, there was a difference. 3 was 3 times the value of 1. It was already very high. William's mathematics was very good, but the goddess of misfortune was obviously at a loss. Even if she took away William's luck for 2 years, he would only gain 2 luck points per day. It was a pity. William could not see the furious expression of the goddess of misfortune, but he was not afraid. It was not the time for the gods to descend. No matter how powerful the goddess of misfortune was, she could only curse him. William only wanted to say 2 words to her: "I'm not afraid." As for the time when the gods would descend to the mortal world, what year would that be? Why would a great evil god remember a mere half-elf? William did not believe it, but the higher the luck, the lower it is. It's not a big deal. Even though it's only a single digit, the first 3 is much more pleasing to the eye than 1. William sighed and no longer cared about the luck. After all, regardless of whether the luck changed from 3 to 1 or from 1 to 3, the single-digit luck did not matter. William first took out the curse doll. Curse doll, quality, legendary, position level, advanced, function. Throw the curse doll at the enemy. If the curse doll is hit, a horrifying doll will appear in the arms of the enemy and stab his chest with a small knife. At the same time, his luck will be 10% of yours. Every 3 seconds, he will randomly lose 100 to 1,000 health points for 3 hours. William was deep in thought. He ignored the problem of losing health points. He just wanted to know what 10% of 1 was. Can my luck value become negative? William laughed foolishly. The cursed doll was even more perverted than the cursed witch. He did not know which unlucky person would have to use this doll. Chain of Consciousness, Level 1, Skill Attribute. Link the souls of 2 people together. They can share everything they see. Consumption, 10 magic points per second. Distance, 10 meters. Cooldown, none. This is a godly skill. No, I have to sell this skill. I can sell it for a sky-high price. Whether it's professional players or ordinary players, they will go crazy for it. William was speechless. But the worst thing was that he could only upgrade this skill to level 15, because this skill did not come from the legacy scroll. If he wanted to upgrade it, he had to find a relevant skill scroll. Then he picked up a mysterious drawing that was made from the fur of an unknown creature. He glanced at it and saw a bunch of distorted words. It was a mess. The words were written like a dog's. It was not as good as the Chinese words he had written in primary school. It was squarish. He could not understand which race it was. He took out Gerdanasi's song score and compared it. It seemed like it was not words, but a song score. He did not waste his luck points. If not, even if he got one of them, he would not get the other. William frowned and pondered. Did Gerdanasi's have the time to create a password? He had become a devil. What other powers could he have? William temporarily put the mysterious drawing aside. He did not have the time to crack the password. It was better to let someone else do it. Endowment. Advanced hardened skin, 1 physical strength equals 1. 5 defense, that's right. It's so simple, but my entire body's defense has increased tremendously. William was overjoyed. It was important to know that the defense power of the gods' equipment could not be stacked together. The defense of the armed guards could only defend against the armed guards, and the defense of the breastplate could only defend against the breastplate. In other words, after using the bloodline bonus, William's physical strength was 487. His basic defense was 1 physical strength equals 0. 5 defense. In other words, when he was naked, his defense was only 243. 5 points. If he included the defense of the advanced epic equipment, it would only be 350 to 450 points. Most of the time, the key was to rely on the chi shield. This meant that if a professional's battle energy shield was broken, he would be in grave danger unless his combat awareness was very strong. But with the advanced hardened skin, even if he was naked, he could still fly. Because when he was naked, he had 730. 5 defense. But it did not seem very high. What if he used his equipment? What if he used his battle energy shield? What if he used all kinds of defensive skills? He was a ranger. It could be said that if this talent was given to a legendary shield, That guy's defense would definitely be extremely hard. But William did not think it would be a waste. If he did not have enough health points, he would make up for it with his flesh. I have to say that killing the legendary devil is worth it. William suddenly held the fantasy darkness rough stone in his hand. Should he go and have fun? Forget it. He had severed ties with the goddess of bad luck, whom he had never met before. He looked out of the window. What happened next was more troublesome. Too many professionals had died in the City of Dawn. It could no longer be described as a soldier. Besides the free players, all the 100,000 professionals in the city had joined the battle. Even the children who had just reached the beginner level. They were the weakest, so they suffered the most casualties. According to the statistics, this did not include the casualties of other forces. The number of casualties in the City of Dawn was as high as 58,340 professionals. It was half of the current number of professionals. It could be said that, just like that, his future soldiers were almost wiped out, and he was going to give out the compensation for the casualties. 1-to-1 was 1, 2-to-2 was 4, 3-to-3 was 6. William really did not want to go. Chapter 2:24. The entire City of Dawn was immersed in grief. Even though the dark clouds above their heads had dissipated and the dazzling sun was hanging in the sky, the civilians in the city still felt as if there was a blurry black screen in front of them. Nearly 60,000 professionals had perished in battle. Half of them had no family members. But what about the other half? The joy of victory had disappeared in a short period of time. What was left was endless grief. It was a sad memory that could not be erased with time. In the City of Dawn, the once beautiful and picturesque scenery had long since disappeared. Broken houses were everywhere. Neat and orderly magic lamps were everywhere, and the clear Rainbow River was also covered with a layer of haze. At the same time, both sides of the streets were filled with countless corpses covered with white cloth. Many people were in pain. The players who could not die walked on the streets, feeling at a loss. Have you seen my son? Have you seen my son? He's very tall. He's only 16 years old. He has short black hair and is fair and clean. When he smiles, he has a small dimple. He has just become a reserve soldier. Have you seen him? An old woman was crying so hard that her eyes were about to go blind. She tightly held onto the arm of a player and kept asking. This player was Xiao. Her eyes were also red, but she pursed her lips and comforted the old woman. Don't worry, Granny. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. The reserve soldiers are the last to charge. Your son will definitely be fine. Really? Then why hasn't he returned home? Why hasn't he returned home? The old woman sat on the street, dejectedly, and kept muttering to herself. Xiao did not dare to say more. There were indeed some people who had not returned home, but they were intermediate professionals. There were also Burned Cinder and the other bosses. They were using the space ring to clean up the battlefield and collect all the corpses. As for the beginner professionals who had not returned, there was only one possibility. There wasn't even a complete corpse left. There were too many of them. There were almost 60,000 casualties. Half of the corpses were not brought back. Most of them had been devoured by the dark creatures. Not a single memento was left behind. The professional players of the Glory Club sat at the side in a daze. They looked at the civilians who had fallen into endless grief. They knew that the vitality of the City of Dawn had been greatly damaged. The Lord had absolute power and authority. But if they did not handle this matter well, the territory might really be in danger. Perhaps some people were afraid of the Lord's authority. Even if they were filled with resentment, they did not dare to say a word. However, there were also a few people who were cursing. However, what they saw was only the surface. They did not know William's talents. His Royal Highness would usually crazily increase the favorability of the commoners in his territory. But now, it was just a sudden drop in favorability. It was not enough to cause a riot. Your Highness, if you don't let beginner professionals fight. Shut up. Chu Yochio glanced at his team members and sneered. Have you seen the official website? How many cities and duchies have fallen in the last 10 days of the Darkness invasion? The death toll has reached 100 million. Do you know what 100 million is? In your eyes, 100 million is just a 9-digit number. It can fill up the entire massacre prairie and pile it up very high. Do you know that? Without Prince William's decisive decision and alliance, not only the City of Dawn, but also the southeastern region would follow in the footsteps of the other countries. Look at the forces in the fallen cities. There are countless casualties. If it really comes to that, do you think that only professionals will die? Do you think those civilians who have the time to curse will still be alive? When the time comes, they will die the fastest. Chu Yochio didn't say anything else after scolding that team member. He squinted his eyes and ran to the forum. Then he started a post. Recently, many players in the City of Dawn had started to stir up trouble. Countless casualties? Sir Lord is too ruthless. Why did he send those professions who had just stepped into the beginner stage to die? But Chu Yochio wanted to say that they should rely on themselves instead of the NPCs. Didn't they know that the beginner professionals of the NPCs and the beginner professionals of the players could beat them up? A bunch of idiots who only knew how to charge around. His voice was hoarse from shouting, but he couldn't stop them from charging around. The counterattack on the 7th day was too chaotic. The troops of the players were especially chaotic. Chu Yochio was the commander of the tens of thousands of players. He really wanted to curse. How could he command? It was a huge battlefield, and the players couldn't understand flag language. He could only use the transmission scrolls to inform the commanders of the major player legions. He let them lead the legions and command the players. During the decisive battle, he had used no less than 5 transmission scrolls, but he couldn't stop the chaos caused by the players. It had to be known. The first wave of attack was from the Silverback Monkeys. The second wave was from the Blade Cavalry Legion and the Troll Legion. The third wave was from the other legions. The fourth wave was from the players. His Highness gave the easiest battlefield to the players who had just advanced. But what about them? It was a mess. In fact, Chu Yochio was curious when he received the notice. Why didn't His Highness let the players die? Then he understood. His Highness wanted to go all out in one go, not to weaken the morale of the players. An army of 500,000 dark creatures. Would the players obediently throw away their lives if they really rushed forward? No matter how rich the rewards were, there would be people who would fish in troubled waters. At that time, the morale of the soldiers would be affected. How could they fight with such an irresistible advantage? Chu Yochio, who usually only read posts and never posted anything. As the captain of the world champion team, he posted a post. Why are you making trouble? When did His Highness show coldness and ruthlessness? Chu Yochio didn't talk nonsense. He played the big picture and played with big data. Everything was based on data. He posted the number of fallen kingdoms in the 9 continents. 89, with only 13 duchies still holding on. Professional casualties, 7, 1 million. Civilian deaths, 93, 1 million. Professional deaths in the southeast region, 180,000. Civilian deaths, 3,531. Civilian deaths in the City of Dawn, 9. At the same time, he sent out a few more recordings. They were of William arranging various matters, all of which were the conversations of many missions that focused on protecting the civilians. After Chu Yochio posted these, he only left one last sentence. If there are no accidents, the final counterattack can only be caused by His Highness. Only he has such charisma. Among the 9 continents, only the southeast region, under the leadership of the Lord, won the counterattack. The City of Dawn only lost 9 civilians. But you people are making trouble by saying that His Highness is cold and ruthless. If the professionals don't fight, are they going to rely on the civilians? Are you people hired by some idiots? Hugging the long legs of the goddess. I haven't seen anything. I just saw a post from a yo-yo. I'll go to the second post. Ruthless B asterisk TCH. I can't get to the second post. I'll go to the third post. Tea and stools are ready. Ferocious as a tiger. Looking at the battle record, 0-5 foot. Those idiots from Emerald Grand Duchy must have hired some people to post. They saw that Gerda Nazis had become a devil and the embodiment of evil, so they started to criticize His Highness. Forever alone. That idiot Light of Freedom spent money to hire some people to post. Someone sent me a screenshot. Everyone, take a look. Pictures. 6 comment. F asterisk CK. 2 professional players appearing in the same post at the same time. I want to say that the shamelessness of light of freedom has broken the bottom line. I want to know when we will go to Emerald Grand Duchy and kill those shameless grandsons until they quit the game. Chu Yochio's post attracted a lot of attention. It was instantly pinned at the top by the administrator of the City of Dawn. William, who was resting, glanced at the forum and saw this post. He silently praised Chu Yochio. In the future, he would find an opportunity to show off. William didn't care what the players said about him, but there were some people who were rotten to the core who were really hateful. William stroked his chin. Was it light of freedom? Did they know about the freedom cage? There was a magic scroll that restricted one's freedom. Even if one died, one couldn't return to the resurrection point. One would be trapped forever. Did they know about the dark cage? If one was thrown into the dark world, even if one died, one could only be reborn in the dark world. Did they know about the big boss slaughtering small accounts? Yes, they should know. The freedom cage and dark cage were invented by some NPCs to target the chosen ones. Because many of the chosen ones who couldn't die were really despicable. They were so despicable that many NPCs would explode in anger. Hence, the NPCs started to research things to deal with the chosen ones. The Freedom Cage magic scroll could only be created by enchanters. It was also researched by the NPCs in the later stages of the game. William didn't need to spend so much effort on the light of freedom. He also didn't need to hire assassins from the Assassin Alliance. It was a waste of gold coins. When he was free, he would go to the Emerald Grand Duchy and kill the level 10 small accounts of the Light of Freedom. Oh, the Light of Freedom had created a guild with 20,000 members. It was called the Freedom Alliance. He would kill the Light of Freedom along the way. Anyway, it would give him experience points. If the Light of Freedom dared to level up, William dared to kill him. He would kill him until the Light of Freedom changed his account. Then he would continue killing. As long as his voice was heard on the forum, William could disguise himself as an ordinary NPC and kill the Light of Freedom 10,000 times. William had become a legendary boss long ago. He didn't want to be angry with some players. However, some players were courting death by attacking him from hundreds of kilometers away. William had no choice but to give in. He had long forgotten about those players, since the players under his command were too far away and couldn't help him kill the Light of Freedom. They couldn't blame him for doing it himself. After all, it was time for the players to see the scene of a legendary boss turning into a bloody butcher and destroying the players' guild base. It's all for your own good. I don't want to cause trouble in the future. For example, if you can't slay a dragon or summon a wild boss, I won't care. William laughed mischievously. He had to go to the Emerald Grand Duchy. He was related to version 2.0. Although it had been a long time since the current version, it was time to prepare some chess pieces. William didn't want to show his face in the city. He wanted to wait for the citizens to calm down before dealing with the aftermath. Suddenly, there was a deafening explosion. He flew into the sky and landed on the moon tree, which was emitting black smoke. At this moment, he saw the garden in the sky that had already been destroyed, as well as a space gate that was exposed outside. Arthur stood at the side in a daze. He didn't know where Annie had obtained a magic scroll. It was powerful enough to destroy the barrier of a space enchanter. Damn, the darkness invasion of the southeastern region is nothing. The darkness invasion of the Moonlight Forest is the real meat grinder. William felt a headache coming on, and his expression kept changing. Go, or not. Chapter 225. Was there a need to think about it? Of course, she had to go. It would be over if she was reckless. William did not hesitate, but he was cursing in his heart. The little princess was too insensible. There were so many troubles in the City of Dawn that had not been resolved, and she was in a hurry to go home. How could he chase after her? When I catch you, I'll spank you until your buttocks are swollen. Then, I'll write my surname backwards. William muttered for a while. He looked at Arthur and said, Don't tell anyone about this. Guard this door. I'll make arrangements and bring Annie back. Don't go in and die. Prince William. Arthur was about to cry. He was willing to die for the princess. If William had not arrived so quickly, he would have rushed in when he regained his senses. When he saw how calm William was, he calmed down. He choked with sobs and said, Prince William, you have to be careful. The princess can turn invisible while riding on her unicorn, but you can't. Behind this door is the palace of the Moonlight Elves. William patted his shoulder and said in a deep voice, "You're a knight. Guard your post. Have you ever seen me lose?" Arthur quickly shook his head. His Royal Highness smiled in a relaxed manner. "That's enough. You'll have to guard it well. It's best if you bring some people with you. Since no one has come through the space gate, it proves that it's still safe. No one has discovered it." William did not say much. He did not have time to waste. He took out a magic transmission scroll and instantly transmitted many messages. First, General Odom would be in charge of the overall situation. He would be in charge of the aftermath of the professionals who died in battle. There were so many gold coins in the treasury. Second, Lautner would be in charge of contacting the Serafkin. He would ask them if they were willing to move and face the dark creatures together. Third, he would send a message to the king of Black Lava Dukedom. He would ask him to find an excuse to surrender to the City of Dawn. He had to do it quickly and within a month. He had to make it look like they were going to face the attack of the dark creatures. Fourth, of course, he would look for Moses. Right now, William couldn't find anyone that he could ask for help from. Roland's favorability level was 480, but their relationship wasn't good enough. Both of them didn't have any way to contact each other. As for the advanced legendary professionals like Burn Cinder, Diablo, Chien, and Lancelot, even if he could bring them along, they would not be able to do so. Advanced legendary professionals were like super soldiers there. Apart from being able to take some hits, they would not be able to dismantle the crystal, especially now that he had reached the pinnacle of being an unlucky chieftain. His luck was so low that it couldn't get any lower. Even the goddess of misfortune had her eyes on him. If he wasn't careful, he might really pull down the team's average luck. So he could only go to stands. After all, this fellow's luck was also in the single digits. The two of them did not need to be afraid. They just needed to do it. Moses seemed to have sensed something as he shut the door of the fortune-telling shop tightly. Bang! Thunder God used his left hand to break the magic wooden door and forced his way into the room. The group of players looked at the city lord, dumbfounded. What was going on? Were these two legendary bosses no longer in love? Although the players had never seen Moses fight. According to the deduction of the players, Moses did not fight during the Darkness invasion. There had to be some restrictions, or he was a trump card, but they did not know what level he was. Prince William had flown down from the sky and forced his way into the fortune-telling shop. It was very exciting. A group of players blocked the door. They wanted to know what was going on. It was a pity. A barrier appeared and blocked the players' vision. Moses hugged the black cat that was trying to escape. He watched as William approached him. He sat on the chair and kept leaning back. "What are you doing? I can smell a disgusting aura from your body. If there's nothing else, leave quickly. There are plenty of materials from the dark creatures, but it's too little." "That's not enough. I've given you half of the hundreds of thousands of corpses of the dark creatures." William was about to say something when his eyes widened. "Brother, were you using them or eating them?" "Right, what's the disgusting aura?" William asked himself. It didn't make sense. He had just taken a bath and even used some perfume. Moses could not be bothered with him. He rubbed the black cat and did not want to speak. "If you don't want to tell me, follow me to the Moonlight Forest. I heard that the homeland of the Moonlight Elves is very beautiful." William grabbed Moses' hand. It was a pity. Director Mo easily broke free and looked at him in disdain. "Go take a look? Or do you want to die? Do you really think that I don't know anything when I sit in the fortune-telling shop every day? It's the largest and bloodiest battlefield in the legendary continent. Sages participate in the battle, and legendary creatures are like dogs. Epic creatures are everywhere. Who am I to be compared to?" Moses felt resentful. He was only an enchanter and had been cursed by a grand mage. He had lost a lot of combat power. How could he accompany him to such a high-level battlefield to look for his girlfriend? Uffed. Scum. Just because of a woman, Moses didn't say a word. He pressed down on the black cat's head so hard that it was about to roll its eyes. William smiled bitterly and helplessly. "Boss, if you go, my life will be safer." Are you really not going?" William was a little helpless. Their friendship had reached 890 points. But he knew that Moses' current strength was rather low. He did not want to take the risk, especially in the Moonlight Forest. It was not just an internal war between the elves. The top experts of the three empires and other powerful forces were also participating in the war. Moses was probably afraid of encountering the experts of the magic sanctuary, of course. He was afraid now, but it did not mean that he would be afraid in the future. When Moses broke the curse and became a legendary, he single-handedly overturned the headquarters of the magic sanctuary. That was an earth-shattering feat, it had to be known. The magic sanctuary was a top force that was on par with the Temple of Light. Moses had attacked the headquarters of the magic sanctuary several times. His Grand Mage teacher had personally taken action, but he had not been stopped. He had even escaped many times. But in the end, Moses had disappeared. The players guessed that he had died, but they did not know how he had died. William saw that Moses was feigning ignorance and was unwilling to go. William had no choice. It was a favor for Moses to help him. It was normal for Moses not to help him. So he said, "If you don't want to go, give me 20 random teleportation scrolls, 3 teleportation scrolls with a location, and a dozen forbidden spell scrolls. I want single target and area of effect scrolls." Moses looked at William, who was not blushing at all. He had witnessed how shameless William could be. 20 random teleportation scrolls? 3 teleportation scrolls? And a dozen forbidden spell scrolls? Did William think that they were cabbages? Did William know how many scrolls he had used to escape from the magic sanctuary? There were hundreds of them. William had not recovered his strength. So how could he make so many? William knew that he had gone overboard. But he could not help but look at Moses. Why did Moses not give him a single scroll? At least throw a few scrolls at William's face so that he could leave. Old Ban had given him one. How could Moses not give him one? But just as William was feeling disappointed and annoyed, Moses threw the black cat on the ground and stood up. He looked deeply at William. "I'll accompany you." "Really?" William was elated. With Moses, who had many trump cards, following him, his safety would be doubled. "Let's go." William was about to push open the door and leave when he was stopped by Moses. Moses scratched his head and said in a deep voice, "I need to make something just in case. Wait for a while." "Okay." William did not say anything. It was enough for Moses to go. He knew that Annie's luck was very high. Her endowment was true luck, which was not fake. In addition to the unicorn super luck, both of them had more than 1,000 luck points. Even if they encountered danger, they would be able to avert it. But now is not the time to be anxious. Moses was an all-round mage. Not only was he talented, but he had also grown up in the magic sanctuary. Who knew how many books he had read? He should be very knowledgeable. Perhaps he was even more familiar with the Moonlight Forest than William. If he could create some disguise scrolls that could change his aura and appearance, it would be even better. Oh, if there were many devils in the palace, he could even transform into a devil. William did not wait for nothing. He invested all his remaining EXP into various skills to slightly increase his safety. After entering the teleportation portal, he would arrive at the palace of the Moonlight Elves. This move was no different from courting death. Cronus had become a super expert in the Sage realm. He could be fighting or resting in the palace, which had become the lair of the dark creatures. If he was not careful, he would be discovered. Damn, he would definitely die without a complete corpse. He would not even have the chance to use the life potion to increase his chances of resurrection. Moses might even be trapped because he was an all-round enchanter. He might even be captured and used. William would be finished. It was useless to have the royal bloodline of the Blackleaf Elves. Even if his father was a sage, Cronus, the super devil king, would not be afraid. Of course, with the dreamy darkness rough stone, the sage might not be able to see through him. "I'm weak when I'm clean, but I'm 10 times stronger when I'm dark. It's really intoxicating." William could not help but cover his head. He nervously took out a bottle of wine and hurriedly drank a few mouthfuls. He hoped that the alcohol would numb him. After all, it was not easy to tap dance at the entrance to hell. If he was not careful, he would be caught by the devils and fall into the endless abyss. But he also had a reason to not give up on Annie. It was not that he coveted the little rich lady's small treasure vault. He truly liked this little sister, Annie. Every time he saw Annie sitting alone on the swing, he could not help but feel sorry for her. He even wanted to stretch out his hand and mess up her long silver hair. But he did not. After Annie learned of her father's death, she could not return to the moonlight forest to pay her respects. But when she saw William forcing a smile when he went to visit her, William wanted to say something to comfort her. But he did not. It was not that he was pretending to be stupid. It was not that he was blind and ignorant. It was just that this world, it was too *king dangerous. As a player who could be killed in a game, William did not have much luck points. After he transmigrated and reincarnated, he only had 3 points of luck points. Now, he only had 1 point of luck points. What the *CK? When I think about luck points, I can't help but curse. William scratched his chin. This was a really depressing matter. And the elves, thousands of years. If Annie did not participate in any conflicts, with her luck points, she could really live forever. He had to be responsible for flirting with women. Who cared if she flirted with men? Could she forcefully lock men up? How long could William live? He did not know. Only God knew. Chapter 2:26. In the fortune-telling shop, after a few minutes, Moses pushed open the door of the laboratory and took out 2 bottles of transformation potion. He sighed and said, "It's a pity that the levels of the devils are too low. The purified blood essence is not enough. But as long as we don't encounter a true legendary, these potions are enough to conceal our identities." Just as Moses was about to leave, William hurriedly grabbed his arm and said, "If you say that we won't encounter a true legendary, then we will definitely encounter one. I have the purified blood essence of the Devil Lord. Is that okay?" Moses looked at the blood bottle in William's hand and was stunned. He carefully sized up William. He was very curious. How could a person like William obtain the blood essence of the Devil Lord? Did he steal it? Did he obtain it by selling his butt? No matter what Moses thought, he did not hesitate. He opened the 2 bottles at the same time. 2 drops of the purified blood essence of the Devil Lord flew out. They instantly integrated into the transformation potion. After a series of magical operations that he could not understand, Moses shook the bottle in his hand and rubbed his head. "It should be about time. Before we step into the teleportation portal, let's drink this." "Wait, I still have the purified blood essence of the Devil Lord." William did not finish his sentence. He did not continue as Moses had expressionlessly taken it away. Moses would treat it as a protection fee. But would William be interested in the transformation potion? How could it be possible? William laughed and tactfully rejected Moses' transformation potion. He took out a pitch-black stone that emitted 5-colored light. He was about to say proudly, "I'll use this, swish." Moses used his immense strength to pry open William's fingers at a speed that exceeded his imagination. He took the stone and threw the 2 transformation potions to William. Moses was in a daze as he admired the stone. Then he smacked his lips and said, "I'll use this." "You used the potion. That's mine." William's mouth twitched. Weren't Moses a mage? Why did he increase his strength? William wanted to say that Moses could snatch his Devil Lord blood essence, but it was too much for Moses to snatch the fantasy darkness rough stone. "It's yours. I'll give it to you when we return." Moses smiled. With this thing, who would use the transformation potion? Was he retarded? Hence, in front of the portal, a handsome idiot bitterly poured the transformation potion into his stomach. There were many elves guarding this place. They watched helplessly as his Royal Highness body twisted and changed, gradually turning into a 2-meter-tall, high-rank demon. A pair of huge bat wings sprouted from its back. But many elven guards couldn't help but complain, "Why is he still so *King handsome?" At this moment, even Arthur and Moses were stunned. Do you have to be so handsome? Even if you become a demon, you'll still be a handsome demon. William's entire body trembled. He felt as if his muscles, bones, and nerves had been reconstructed. Even his battle energy had become dark. However, at the same time, many of the skills on his skill table had turned dark and could no longer be used. He would probably have to rely on brute force to fight. But no matter what, the effect of this transformation potion was simply too exaggerated. Its aura was no different from that of a high-level demon. He glanced at the time limit of the potion. It was a full 24 hours. Moses snapped his fingers. Whoosh! A brand new demon appeared. There were no side effects. It was just that simple. Then, the two of them entered the spatial gate at the same time. Meanwhile, a group of live broadcasters had participated in the war a few days ago. They had received news from various sources. They knew that the darkness invasion of the Moonlight Elves was the largest and most dangerous battlefield in the entire legendary continent. As live broadcasters, their goal was to bring the best experience to the audience. After the darkness invasion of the southeastern region ended, they embarked on their journey to the Moonlight Forest. But their route was different from William's. Angry Fatty and his group of live broadcasters rushed to the Emerald Grand Duchy. They used the spatial gate to travel to the kingdom and then to the human empire. Many players were dumbfounded by the scenery along the way. In particular, there were countless experts in the human empire. The audience did not know what to say. Then, they took a boat to the Moonlight Forest. Most of the spatial gates in the Moonlight Forest had been closed. Otherwise, it would be under military control. The players had no chance to enter the spatial gates. Besides, many live broadcasters were so poor that they had to sell their equipment. The teleportation through the spatial gate is too expensive. It costs 50 gold coins to travel from the kingdom to the human empire. Someone complained. They knew that the journey was long, so they brought a lot of gold coins. But they realized that even if they were not robbed by the NPCs, they might not have enough money to return to the human empire. The corners of Fatty's mouth twitched. The distance between the palace and the human empire is very far. It's understandable that the teleportation gate is expensive, but I didn't expect there to be such a vast lake in the continent. 3 to 5 live broadcasters gathered on the deck of a large ship and surveyed the surroundings. At this moment, many warships on the lake and magical beasts in the sky were bringing many professionals to the Moonlight Forest. They did not dare to be too arrogant. Not only were they on the deck, but there were also many mercenaries, demon hunters, and temple knights. The weakest among them was an advanced, and most of them were bosses. The battlefield in the Moonlight Forest was very high level, but did not mean that there were no beginner, intermediate, and advanced professionals. William said that the advanced legendary bosses were like super soldiers in this battlefield. He was right. After all, super soldiers could also kill heroes. If a level 6 hero stood in front of a super soldier, he would definitely be hammered to the point that he doubted his life. Hey, look, what's that on that guy's back? Someone glanced at a person and pointed in bewilderment, before Fatty and the others could take a look. The professional seemed to have noticed their gazes. He turned his head and picked up the cannon on his back. He aimed the huge cannon muzzle at them. As his battle energy continued to infuse into the cannon, the huge cannon muzzle started to condense dazzling blue light. A chill ran down the 5 live broadcasters' spines. They felt that when they died, the durability of their equipment would be instantly destroyed. When the professional saw their reaction, he could not help but laugh. After all, not everyone could come to the battlefield in the Moonlight Forest. However, these little fellows who were only at the middle level were quite courageous. He put away the cannon and said with a smile, "Hey, little fellows, have you never seen a cannon master before? Cannon gunner?" Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. Was there such an awesome occupation? Gosh, is that a handheld cannon? That's awesome. Won't anyone get pregnant if he shoots it? Fatty was speechless. He scanned the various heroes on the ship. He was dazzled by the variety of weapons. For a moment, he wanted to say, "My current ranger occupation is nothing. I want to be a cannon gunner."